All right. Welcome, everyone. We have another special guest, Mr. Charlie Carrel. How are you, sir?
Hey Jeff, good to have you. Good to be on. So excited, by the way, to be speaking to you. And I've been saving this because I didn't want to mention it before the podcast started.
Okay.
I really think that we have a lot in common that a lot of people don't. And I have been watching your YouTube and Twitch content for quite a while. If you go through my YouTube history, there's a lot of you. There's also a lot of other streamers like Lex, and I watched Tonko when he was around. But one thing that I really pay attention to is when I'm watching YouTube content, how does it make me feel? Because you get to kind of like structure your day, how you feel, your energy based on the content that you absorb or the media you absorb. And every single time I watch your content, I'm leaving with a smile, man. Even if you're running bad, there's that, I don't know, there's that burst of positivity that comes from any kind of horrible situation or any kind of amazing situation that I think you bring to the poker world. And I want to express some sincere gratitude for the burst of positivity that you brought to my life, because I'm not just saying this for the podcast, 100% honest. I watch so much of your content and it always makes me happy.
Wow. Well, that's very, very nice of you to say. I appreciate it. I mean, like I said, I know how talented a player you are. I know we have mutual friends. Like we were saying, we haven't really gotten to really have a conversation. So, we've talked, but not in depth. So this will be fun to kind of dive in today. But no, I'd say the same. Like I just know, I know how talented a player you are, and I know the overall message and vibe is very zen, very positive, very good. Because poker is an emotional game. It's like, don't get it wrong. Like
Definitely.
you're streaming on Twitch, especially when it's not you're there and you're taking a 2 out or 3 out, or you're losing a big equity spot maybe to a viewer doesn't even understand. Really, right? Because a lot of the spots, like
Yeah, exactly.
come down to a few spots, like a few flips or a bad beat or an unlucky cooler, and it has a big effect. So it's not easy to just sit there, take it on the chin, and be like, oh, everything's peachy and it's great, and it's hard to kind of train yourself, I think, to get in that mindset and be able to look at the overall picture. I think it's important to look at life as like, it's a lot of variance. It's one kind of big game, right? So it's like, yeah, poker, maybe you lose a hand, but you're healthy, or there's just so many different things, and it's hard to sort of zone it all in. And I think we're obviously all not perfect at it. So that's something I do want to ask you quickly before we kind of dive back and look through your career. How do you find you deal so well with positivity and have this outlook on dealing with, I guess, bad beats or unfortunate events in poker? What's your sort of MO on that? How do you approach that?
Yeah, so this is one of the things that I think you and I have in common, that we tend to be speaking about positivity. And I think that positivity in some circles gets kind of a bad rap. I think that people often associate positive mindsets with authenticity. They think that you're not being yourself if you're not just like screaming, or if you're not flipping the table up when you get a bad beat or something like that. But for me, at least, positivity isn't just about always being happy. It's about, no matter the situation, no matter how traumatic, no matter how miserable you are, always having that voice that's almost above your brain, your mind, saying everything's still going to be good. Look for the good within the bad. Look for the diamond in the rough. Look for the silver linings, kind of thing. So I've always had that since quite a young age. I've always been quite a positive person. But I will touch on one thing that you said about poker being an emotional game. Is when I first started grinding poker, the first like 3 or 4 years, I never really got tilted. Like there will be mild moments, but it was never really too much of an emotional downswing game. At least I was only ever enjoying it. But something I've learned about myself from being on Twitch is that I'm getting so upset with myself when I make a mistake on the Bankroll challenge, which is for like a $30 pot. And I'm the kind of person that if I'm in a 100K tournament on the bubble and I'm bluff shoving 2x, and then I realize as I'm shoving that's a stupid bluff and then I lose, I'm still laughing and smiling and having a great time. So there's something that my ego does, or something that my ego says to me when I'm streaming in front of loads and loads of people, that's like, oh no, don't do something stupid. And then I get really down on myself. Have you experienced that? Do you find it difficult to stay good in front of people?
Yeah, I actually I do. The thing I would say about that is I think that looking back on some of my Twitch streams and over the years, some of the bigger moments or some of the runs, I feel that there's sometimes I try to play too passively because I know how important the deep
Yeah.
run is. and it's like, oh, a spot where I know I'm supposed to probably jam fives here on a, you know, in a spot where it's like close, but definitely in the right play, I kind of tend to not. And I think sometimes I get, you know, to that, just sort of like playing to the crowd, or like just like not playing my necessarily best game. You know, as well
I
as
know exactly what you mean.
tables. Sometimes playing too many tables. I actually want to ask you on that too. How many tables do you generally play when you're online, or if you're streaming? And does that vary a lot?
Yeah, so it does vary a lot. But just speaking about what you mentioned there, I've seen you play, and just like a very positive critique of your game.
Yeah.
First of all, I think you're extraordinarily intuitive as a person. I've seen some hands where you're just like, I know this person has this, and I'm going to make this ridiculous check back. Like that one time that guy had a straight flush, and you check back. I can't remember exactly what it was. You check back a boat, maybe.
I flopped top full house, and it was like a 2-card straight flush. Or sorry.
Yeah, and you just like lost the minimum. And some people will look at that and be like, well, that just can't be good, because now you're being exploited in XYZ situation. But like, when is that ever going to happen again? You know, when's that one situation against that one player ever going to happen? If it happens again, then maybe he can exploit you, but maybe you won't get the same intuition next time. Yeah. And so I will say, even though I have seen you make some more passive decisions when it comes deep, I think that you make up for it in buckets. And I think that's why you've had the success you have, just because there are so many moments where your intuition can come into play, because logic can only do so much. You can't count all of the combos in every single spot and then take into consideration the other 5 variables like ICM and do this multivariate analysis and then come to a quantified decision. You have to use your intuition of like, what do I feel is best? And I think you do that really well.
Right. Well, I appreciate you saying that. And I mean, it's obvious that's a big part of your game too. I think you do some very unconventional stuff. I think it was Triton in July. I was there and doing the commentary and saw some of the spots, some of the bluffs, some of the calls. I mean, you just really, again, you seem to be dialed into the sort of matrix, or the, you know, GTO. You got to understand that.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. Like, hold on one second. Can you hear me? I think it's
yeah. So the audio just went out on my headphones. Is the audio okay now?
I can hear you fine. I think my Vadron's trying to adjust some stuff here on my end. I think it might be my end, but you can hear me?
Yeah, there's no echo or anything?
Nope.
Cool. All right, we'll just do this then.
So yeah, man, it's fun. I think poker, it really is. It's like it's just in my mind, the perfect game, right? It's just like the luck, the combination of skill with some luck, and the story of a tournament, and just the different ebbs and flows. It's sort of a metaphor to life in general, and I think it's really cool. So I do want to dive in and ask you how you got started in poker. I saw you're from Jersey. It's I'm not even familiar with that. It's island, and you're in
it's a little island next to France.
Next to France. So you were born and raised there in Jersey, and how it's small.
I was raised in the UK.
In the UK, but you were born in Jersey, and then how did you get into poker? How did you first find this game?
So I played it a bit when I was like 13, 14, and I'd often just play against my friends for like £5 or £10 whilst we're getting drunk and eating pizza. And I loved it then, but I never got seriously into it until I was 19. And then the person that I was living with at the time, whilst we were doing A-levels, said that he was playing online poker, and he was like, you should really give it a go. And I was like, I don't really want to. It sounds like not that interesting. But I saw him playing. I remember now he was playing 9 max 2NL, and he had made like $1.50. And he was like, this is really easy. I was like, fine, all right, I'll try it. So I deposited £10, and the first sit and go that I played was I can't remember exactly, probably like a 90-man $1 or something. And I won it for $45. It's probably 180 man. And I was pretty hooked at that point. And so I in parallel to doing my A-levels, I then started grinding micro stakes and low stakes sit and goes, and then Zoom cash games. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to take 1 year out before university, because I was planning on doing a maths degree and then going into either banking or some kind of theoretical physics probably.
And I said, okay. Just to interrupt you, you're 20. Are you 26? 5? How old are you?
26. Yep.
26. So what year? This is what year? And how old were you when you started playing?
I guess it's 2013-ish, and I was 19 at this point.
Okay, so you're 19. You say you're going to take a year before college, and you're gonna give it a go.
Yeah. So I thought I'd go all in, and I moved back to Jersey actually, and lived with my grandma, and I did not speak barely to anyone for the next year, and I said, okay, if I can make it in this year, then I won't go to university and I'll just do poker. I really felt like it could be a thing. And I said, okay, I had 1K at this point. I was like, if I can turn this into 100K, then I'll definitely just not go to university. And I got up to 510 pretty quickly online cash games, and I was like 24 tabling, playing 16 hours a day. It was pretty intense. And then
what stakes and how was it? 6 max, 9 max?
Yeah, 24 tabling, 6 max, between 1-2 and 510 by the end.
I mean, listen, I've done, I don't know, I've done something maybe like 12 or so of 6 max cash, I think. But I mean, I saw the Nano Noko in person do the record at the time at the PCA.
Oh, no way you were there.
Yeah, that was, I think it was like 42 or something, some crazy number, and he had to book a profit and play for so long. But I mean, to put that in perspective, that is, that's insane, right? Like 24. I mean, are you timing out? How did you stack? Did you tile? Like, I'm just fascinated how you could do that. Like,
yeah, I was playing at first quite a tight style, so I wasn't playing as many hands as I would have been. I remember it was at one point tight enough that I'd be folding King Jack suited under the gun 6 max. So it was definitely slower than it could have been, but then I did step it up once my intuition kind of kicked in, my autopilot was better. But it definitely wasn't the best in terms of me getting good at poker. So if anyone's listening out there and they're wondering how many tables they should play, looking back, I would have gotten a lot better at poker a lot quicker if I hadn't played as many tables, because I wasn't thinking through as much. But the one thing I was doing was, outside of playing, I was constantly thinking about poker, constantly just like, okay, if I flop this and this many big blinds deep, can I lead in this spot against this kind of player, etc. And I'd be doing that day in, day out.
But when you're playing 24 player or 24 tables, because I mean, listen, I started playing on, I don't know, 2004, 2005, right, online. It was crazy, like the heyday of people were giving it away, to put it lightly. But then in 2000, you're talking about post Black Friday, the game was tougher for sure. So like 24 tables, I mean, you're not really, I mean, you're playing cards, you're playing the spots, the ranges, but were you had notes on guys? You can't take notes 24 tabling. Would you go back and hit replay and go through and tag opponents? Like, how are you maneuvering 24 tables? Because it's hard. It's almost impossible to like make a read, like, you know, like against a guy.
Yeah. I don't know.
I would imagine you're not playing 24 like all the time. Like sometimes it's 6 or 10 or 12, or were you just like, you'd open it up in 24 reg?
There was a good few months where I'd try and just get as many as I could, and then I'd go up and down and experiment with it. I think that the more one is in tune with their intuition, the more tables they can play quite profitably. But the thing is, and you'll probably know this as well, that when you're an intuitive player, when you use more intuition than the average person, it's very easy for that to just be knocked and everything to just go to shit. You know, if you watch one of the best chess players in the world, or the best chess player in the world, Magnus Carlsen, he's a very intuitive chess player, but there are moments where he's just off, and he's like, oh, I'm just off, and then he's just not making any of the right decisions in comparison to how he normally would. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's the same with poker. I can be in the zone and I can play 24 tables and I'm just feeling out every single spot and I'm not even thinking. But then I can be out of the zone and I can be playing 2 tables and I'm still making a bunch of mistakes. So now when I'm playing, I really do adjust based on how I'm feeling. And if I need to slow things down, slow thought processes down and meditate more, then I'll put down to even like 2 tables sometimes if I'm tournamenting.
Talk to me a little bit about that when you're in the zone and what your preparation looks like. You strike me as someone that is pretty regimented, where you would wake up, you want to work out, you want to eat well, you want to meditate. Like, give me a little bit of a look in a routine, either for online and live, or if it changes, or if you're just kind of see how the day's going. Like, would you rather sleep longer, be fully rested, or do you wake up and you don't miss a meditation and a workout before you play? What's your sort of daily look like?
So this is what my day ought to look like all the time, but sometimes just doesn't look like. I'll wake up. I'll make sure that before I touch my phone, I'll go outside, put my feet in some grass and meditate, which for me is like super important to do some grounding. Then I'll meditate and I'll spend some time with my cat, or with Hannah, who's here at the moment, and maybe do some singing. And then I'll start looking at my emails and things, do stuff to do with my charity, to do with business, and then I will consider what to do for the rest of the day. Exercise will come at some point in the day, but it's not as regimented as it used to be because I stopped enjoying it as much. But I try to make sure I exercise at least once a day.
Well, that sounds like a great day, but then where does the poker? What happens on a Sunday? What happens on a high roller? 100K
Sundays are a different beast.
Like wake up and just roll into it, or kind of, or maybe meditate, or do you still get out and try to spend a little bit of a preparation time?
The weird thing about Sundays now is that they start at like 4 p.m., which I think is a travesty. I really wish that some of the poker sites would roll back like a few hours, some of the tournaments. So when you're in Europe, you're not up until like 5 a.m. playing a tournament.
Right.
So Sundays especially, I have a lot of time just like bumbling around, just preparing myself for what's going to be like a 14-hour late night grind. But poker, I haven't been playing as much recently, apart from the last month where quarantine has meant I can't do a lot of the charity stuff in London that I could. So I've just been grinding the Bankroll challenge, and I've started playing some 500 Zoom as well, which I'm really enjoying.
When you say 500 Zoom, explain to the everyone what that means on what kind of buy-in and how does that work?
Sure. So Zoom is the PokerStars version. By the way, if you're going to play any cash games, PokerStars has a really high rate, guys. But Zoom is the PokerStars version of like Fast Forward. It's where you fold and it instantly goes to the next hand. The 500 means the buy-in's $500. And 500 Zoom is notoriously the one that's meant to be really, really difficult. It was my bread and butter for a long time. I was grinding hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of hands on 500 Zoom back in the day, had a lot of success. And something I found out interestingly about 500 Zoom is that every single time that I start playing it, people are like, you can't win this unless you've studied all the solvers. And I never study with solvers. And then every single time it's like, well, I just don't think that's true. I don't think that is the case.
So you've had good success. Are you playing No Limit or Pot Limit Omaha? Mostly No Limit, Holden?
Yeah, 100% No Limit at the moment.
And you are having success at that game, because I have heard that's notorious, that very tough. That game in particular.
So far, so good. It's a small sample so far, so there's always a chance that I might just be deluded and I might not be as good as I think I am.
And listen, I'm sponsored by Party Poker now. Very, very happy with Party Poker and what they're doing, and just the overall direction of the company with Rob Young and those guys. Just, for me, it was a no-brainer. I actually left PokerStars. Obviously, you've seen Dan Legranu, Jamie Staples, Kevin Martin, Nano Noko, a lot of people, Elke, different people. Libri have kind of, this company vision, I feel like, has shifted. Just to put that in perspective, fast forward, you mentioned Party Poker has that. What is the difference? Is the pool, is it just the amount of players? Is it not enough guys on fast forward on Party? Or what do you like better about Stars? Or is that just where you've played and comfortable?
Yeah, I feel like it's just a habit at this point. There's also the reason that I started playing 500 Zoom again recently is because I just wanted to see where I was in terms of how good I could play against the other players, and then also just brush up on playing against these kind of players, start understanding how GTO players are thinking, tap into their energy, if you want to use a more esoteric way of saying it, and just get better at poker. So I kind of just went for the toughest that I could without losing insane amounts of money if I start playing like 1,500, obviously.
Right. And so at that, is that something is it true to say you learn very, very well in that? Because you could go and review a session, then you're going to look at, you obviously know who the really good players are there, right? It's pretty easy to tell you see the guys with the big stacks, or you know their names and you just know they're winning good players. And then you can go back and look at some of the hand histories and be like, oh, that's interesting. With this hand, he did this, or he overbet huge here, or he bluffed with this hand. And then you start saying, oh, I would have done the same, or start looking at why maybe they did that and why it's right. Is that a way you kind of review and study, or
not really? What I'll generally do is just play, and then when I'm not playing, I'll be thinking just all the time. So like I spent an hour, I think 2 days ago, just sitting on the floor thinking through what happens if somebody opens early position, we defend, and the flop is 8-7-5, and I spent maybe like half an hour just going over every single hand that I can have in that situation, how I think the GTO players would react to it, and where I think they can be exploited in that kind of thing. So it will be a lot of thinking, but I know a lot of other people, they really prefer like reading or watching content or anything like that. So it really is dependent on the person.
Very interesting. And what about we got to dive through your Hendon mob here as well, because it is, I mean, you're closing in on 10 million live earnings. Obviously, COVID-19 things are world's on its head a bit. Live poker, I mean, it looks like you haven't had since August 2019. You haven't been hitting the live stops or playing. Your career is it's crazy because it's not that long, right? Like most of the guests are started in 2004 or 8 or have been around a long time. Even some of the younger people that have been on. I mean, your start was pretty recent, and you've had a ton of success. How have you kind of gone and you do these bankroll challenges with what, 1,000 to 10,000, or these different types of things where you're doing for sort of showing people how they can come up, but then you're also playing 100K buy-ins, or you played a lot of 100Ks, I would say, or numerous. How is that for you to grind or do like that challenge for 1,000 to playing 100K buy-in? How do you find the same enjoyment in playing when you're doing this?
There's definitely a different type of enjoyment, and I would like to just criticize myself a bit and say that I've neglected poker in quite a few ways where I really shouldn't have, because of some emotional difficulties I've had in the last few years. And I said that I was going to complete this bankroll challenge quite a while ago, and then I just stopped because I just couldn't handle the negativity that was coming in my direction from the poker world and from Twitch. And I was going through a really, really tough time. So I just absolutely stopped it. And I like people who finish what they start. And I was quite disappointed with myself that I didn't finish it. So that's why, again, recently I've started the bankroll challenge again, because I am going to finish it. So it's a $50 to $10,000, and we're up to like 600 and something. But I absolutely love it. I was playing a few days ago, maybe a week ago now. I was playing a sit and go session, and I was playing the $3.50 turbo rebuy, and it's so top heavy. It's like $495, which is crazy. It's 180 people, and I won it. And it was the craziest session that I've ever played. And I was so enthusiastic, and I was so emotionally engrossed in what was happening. I was celebrating more in that than I did in almost any other tournament, bar maybe the Scoop main event. And no, actually by a long way, any live event, I've never celebrated that much. And there's something about having all of those people watching on Twitch, being on your team, all of the positive energy going towards something and it actually happening, that for some reason I find it so magical.
There's definitely something there. And speaking of magical runs, you won the Sunday Million, right? Is that correct? Early on in your career?
That's the OG bank, yeah.
For like 200K or something, or what was that? When was that exactly?
So that was about halfway through the year. I'd got up to 510 cash games, and I was like, I'll try tournaments. They can't be that hard. First Sunday, I think it was a No Limit Omaha tournament. Had no idea how to play it. So I was like, all right, let's do this. Let's try again. Yep. Second Sunday, I hadn't slept the night before, as far as I recall, and I carried on playing, full of energy drink and not other stimulants, just energy drink actually.
Yeah.
And I had 2 simultaneous parallel deep runs, one of which was in the Sunday Second Chance and one was in the Sunday Million. And I came 6th and 2nd respectively, but in the Sunday Million, I got more than the first guy because we did a deal. And that was
okay.
Yeah, that was a beautiful start. And then I spent about a third of that in 3 days on my friends on a trip to Amsterdam. And it was the most beautiful 3 days we've ever had, perhaps.
Wow. That sounds like quite a party. That's an expensive. That's your good friend, man. That's an entertaining time. We'll leave that for another podcast. What happened there? That's a lot of money. That seems like Amsterdam's a fun place, right? So you got.
Yeah, I wouldn't spend that much money anymore, but I always said that if I won a big tournament, I'm going to take my friends to Amsterdam. So.
Very, very cool. Well, that's a great story. And was this you not going to college? This score, this puts you over the hump and kind of hit your goal, if you will, to sort of feel like, all right, I'm going to do this. This is real. This is something that I'm going to pursue. Was this the mark?
Yeah, that was the one. I was in the tens of thousands at that point, and it was about halfway through the year that I'd set out. And then I won 200K, so I was like, all right, I'm done. I'll check out, which is obviously like kind of cheating because anyone can bink. But it was good enough for me.
And what do you feel gave you the ability to deliver on that? With you're obviously a competent poker player at this point. You're doing well. You're a winning player. How do you believe you were able to navigate and hit that tournament score? Because cash games and tournaments are very different. A lot of intuitively the same, but it is different. So how do you think you were able to close and perform and finish? Because it's not easy to win a poker tournament. Whether there's luck, but what do you think? Was there something that some kind of program or coaching or thing that you had seen or watched on TV, or what do you feel like gave you an edge to be able to close out a tournament with this not much experience in tournaments?
Yeah, I don't think that I was playing absolutely incredibly, so I can't say that there wasn't a huge element of luck in there, but at the same time, I think that my cash game experience was really, really helpful post flop, at least, because tournament players back then notoriously were just terrible at post flop, and especially in the Sunday Million, obviously, it's another beast.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you do get it done. And what's like your family? Do you have brothers, sisters, or what's your family's take on you playing poker? Was it a gradual, hey, I'm going to try this and then I'm going to go to college if it doesn't work out, or if it doesn't go how I planned, or what? And they were like, okay, that's a good plan. Or were you just like one day, hey, this is what I'm doing and that's it? And they were like, how did they feel about that?
Yeah, it was a gradual acceptance. I think they went through the few stages that a lot of poker families do. Like my mum, when she first saw that I was gambling, she was very, very, very skeptical of what I was doing with my time, especially because my A-levels were going on at the same time. Sorry, Hannah's getting the door. And skip forward a few years later, and I managed to buy her a car. And we've been poor our whole life, so money has always been something quite precious, in the sense of like we've had to work for it and then eat, and then work for it, then eat. So to be able to now provide for my family financially is just such a beautiful experience. And I guess you probably had similar experiences. And you're a family man, aren't you? I forget that there are poker players that can be like mature adults at the same time. It's crazy.
It's hard. It's hard for sure. Yeah. No, my son actually turned 1 just the other day on what was it, the 22nd, on Earth Day. So that was kind of cool. Like my I'd say my overall game plan, or just sort of way of looking and dealing with things, have changed, of course, but it's it almost makes me more efficient. I think, you try to you optimize time, you think about it, what am I doing, this or that? And it's not a perfect formula, but it's, you try to, you really start, time becomes like a serious thing. Like I know you're at your age, I was single, running around. It looks like you're in a how long you've been in a relationship for a while now, or are you
off and on for a few years?
Yeah. So, but it's different, right? It's like being also, I'm married, have a child. Yeah. It's the priorities and the things are a little different. It's you're at the ultimate currency is age, and you're super young. I mean, I guess in the poker world, yeah, you're on the. It seems like there's not really a ton of people coming up anymore, right? Because there's not a lot of like 19, 20, 21-year-olds. I feel like so much. Maybe you're more in tune if you think that's the case or not. But I've seen at the World Series of Poker, like the numbers are really down. Like 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds. It's a crazy small number of people playing the poker. Do you have any thoughts on? Do you think poker has seen its best days, or do you think there might be a resurgence of people that are coming up, like, younger 18 college students that are going to play?
That's a good question. So first of all, I think the reason, or one of the biggest reasons, that no young people seem to be in the higher stakes is just that it's really tough these days. It's a saturated field. So I always make sure that even if I'm selling my poker coaching content, I say 98%, I'm just guessing, but 98%, let's say, of poker players that want to be professional probably won't make it. It's probably less than that, but I always think it's good to overestimate, because I've had so many messages and so many conversations with either fans or people that I've interacted with on social media that say, I tried to make it as a poker player and I've wasted the last 4 years of my life and I'm miserable now. And that's the side of poker that you just don't see. And it's the side of poker that a lot of coaching websites never speak about, because it's not in their best interest. They're not incentivized to say, oh, by the way, you probably won't make it. Make sure you've got a backup. Mm-hmm. So that's a big element. In terms of, do I think poker has more heydays to come? I do think that there is a huge amount of people out there that would love to play poker, but just haven't found that out. I'm actually connecting with somebody with a really, really huge audience in the YouTube space, and we're going to be doing some poker content. And I believe that will bring in a huge new surge. And I think that if a bunch of YouTubers manage to tap into the poker market, first of all, they would make a lot of money. And second of all, the poker sites would, I mean, I think they could grow exponentially for at least a couple of years. I just think that the marketing has been kind of a bit too focused to people that already play poker.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I would agree with that. I think the U.S., the U.S. is a bit complicated too. You're talking about the UK, Europe, and all that. It's if the U.S. could ever get its act together, they're obviously Pennsylvania, Michigan. Those are pretty important states. Like relatively speaking, California and New York are the golden tickets. But I think just alone, if those could get back on the grid, it would basically reinvigorate the industry. But to be fair, the COVID-19 coronavirus stuff, which is pretty inconvenient for the world and a pretty big mess, if to just put it simply. Yeah, if anything, for poker in particular, the numbers have been up. The tournaments seem to, that there's been a boost in that respect. I don't know if it'll be a carryover once things get back to normal, but I do, the industry seems to have a little bit of a kick up, right? No one's betting on sports. There's not a lot of entertainment, if you will. So that seems to be.
I hadn't even thought about the sports betting side of things. That's so interesting. We must be getting so much punt money from the sports bettors.
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy time. Like there's just no doubt about it. All across the board, things are up. Which site do you play? How do you break down your volume between, let's just call it Party Poker, Poker Stars? Do you play ACR? Like, what's your schedule? If you were to say on 100% on a tournament grind Sunday, what is your pie chart of volume?
At the moment, it's 50-50 Party and Poker Stars, but I'm soon going to be changing that to play at another site. I'm just speaking to them behind the scenes and making sure that I'm not going to be promoting a site that actually is doing not great things. But there is a third that I really like. But honestly, I'm with you. I think Party Poker is great. I disagree with so many of the things that Poker Stars have done, although I must say I'm phenomenally grateful for the fact that Poker Stars has existed in the first place. It's put us, you and me, in such a privileged position to be able to play this beautiful game for a living and just not have to deal with so many of the other shit that a lot of people have to.
Yeah, exactly. It's easy to just sit there and pile on or say something, and it's tough, right? You don't want to bite the hand that feeds you, if you will. Like it's kind of tough. I don't agree in a lot of direction. There was actually, I don't know if you caught wind of this other day. I saw Sam Greenwood, some others tweeting that they had I think it was a 5K. They had a guarantee of 500K and it got like 435 or 65K. And they basically canceled the tournament after day one. Like it was in the money and they canceled it or something crazy strange. Did you catch wind of that at all? Like it's something I never heard.
I think I saw GraphTech post about it. And what I'm imagining is that it was probably a mistake. I'd like to not assume malice in this spot because I don't think it's worth their time to be malicious for 65K. That being said, because of their track record of essentially stealing money out of the Supernova program, I'm not going to be able to say that with certainty.
Okay, yeah, I think you're right. I just was scrolling through something about the stolen. Exactly your point, right? It doesn't make sense. They're gonna go to the most alert, intuitive, and vocal people in the industry and just like take 65
shit on them
and set everyone like that. I mean, it doesn't make a ton of sense. So maybe it was a mistake. Anyway, yeah. Let's dive into your career. So you hit live. Tell me about this 2014. You were already grinding. Had you won when you hit this live 2000 main event at the London Grand Final, Grosvenor? Had you won the Sunday Million and chopped it or whatnot? Is this already, you'd already had that under your belt?
Yeah, that's post Sunday Million and post doing quite a lot of 500 zooming as well. So after I lived with my friend Ben, we grinded up from, well, he was in the micro stakes when we met, and then he now plays the super high rollers. So we were playing day in, day out, every single day in London. And then I went off to university for like 10 weeks just to see what it was like. I wasn't intending to stay. And during that university time, I played my first live tournament in such a long time, and it was that tournament. And again, I literally had 0 hours sleep before day one. I was falling asleep at the table, and still managed to just run like God and take it down.
Pretty crazy. So you get the win, you get a live win, which is nice, right? Because online's cool, it's fun to win, but getting a live kind of trophy, navigating a real life in the flesh, getting a win, that was very cool. And then you're playing more. So now you're traveling, right? You're traveling the world. You're in EPT San Remo. You're going to Spain. You're going over the UK. Now you're in the Bahamas, and you get a score for 1.2 million in May 2015 at the 25K. Was this your first 25K? I see it's your first 25K cash. I don't know if you.
Yeah, it was the first 25K I played, and it was the second high roller I played, which is pretty insane.
This was this 10K, the first one.
Maybe it wasn't the second high roller.
It depends what you define as a high roller, 10K or 25.
Yeah, I think I just got that wrong. I think that the second high roller was the 10K actually.
Okay, so you hit a 200K score in Malta, and I actually have never been there, but David Peters takes it down. Some big names there. You get a nice score. 200K is nice, but 1.2. I mean, that's a game changer. No, like that's a different level. 7-figure score. You take down first place. What did this do for you? And what was this like in Monaco? Of all places? Very, very.
There's a lot of fun side stories that happened around that. First of all, there was one of the first tournaments I ever sold action in. I only had my own action up until then, and I was like, okay, 25K, I might as well sell some. I was so confident in Ben, who I think this was his first ever high roller. He didn't even play a 10K. I was so confident in him. I had 30-something% in myself, and I had like 80% in him because no one else would buy it from him because it was his first one. He ended up min plus cashing that one, and then running bad just right at the end, and I ended up taking it down. Another side thing is that because it was the first time that I'd ever sold action, I was completely discombobulated about how I was organizing it. I didn't always say booked. I didn't always do the right thing. I did have a few people that had sent before would say booked and everything was good, but there was this one person that got me real good. On the final day, as I was going into the day 3, he messages me and he's like, I'm so glad that I invested in you in this tournament. And I was like, quoi? Pardon? Yeah. And so I look back at the messages and it's him being like, hey, can I buy 2% from your package? And I was like, yeah, sure, mate. And we just never spoke about it again, didn't book, didn't do anything else. And I ended up just having to pay him out because the rest of the poker world was like, oh yeah, you probably do owe it, kind of, even though you didn't say booked. And I definitely got free rolled in that spot.
Wow. Yeah, it's that's unfortunate. And that's 2% on $1.24 million. That's a lot of money, and that's a bit of tilting, right? Because like you said, the word free roll, which it's not a good thing to be. You don't want to be getting free rolled because it's like you're saying, if you had lost, it's unlikely he would have reached. If you didn't think you had a piece, he's not just gonna. I mean, I don't know the person, I don't know the situation, but yeah, like you're saying, he probably wouldn't have just said, "Oh yeah."
Not gonna name names. Out of interest, I'm an extremely scammable person. How many times have you got in the poker world?
Oh man, I don't want to talk about it. I have a pretty big what's the word? Black whatever. I have some stuff, but it's part of the process, and honestly it's part of the learning too, right? You kind of learn with friends and people and different you kind of learn, like when you're loaning or lending or borrowing or trading or whatever, you kind of have to understand what you're doing and who you're dealing with. And I think, like you mentioned, Ben Heath and some of your almost like brothers, right? People that are like your core, your people, you do anything and they have your back. And then there's some people where, you're just sort of they're just there and they're not really part of like your team. And you got to be careful. And you got to realize that if you're not on your toes or sharp and alert and taking protocols, like you're going to be vulnerable for some stuff. I mean, I'm sure you've learned, like you said, you learned lessons and you kind of just get it. Like the poker world's great. A lot of my closest or best friends are from poker, directly or indirectly. And I wouldn't trade it for the world, but there are also some people that are, anytime there's money and glitz and glamour and stuff, there's going to be people looking for angles, looking to take advantage. It's just part of the, just goes with it. But I think poker.
I got a question.
Yeah.
You obviously being quite a positive person, how do you handle the negativity that's kind of intrinsic within so much of the poker world? Because on Twitch, I'm sure you get a lot of it. On YouTube, I'm sure you get a lot.
Yeah, YouTube in particular, I think YouTube's tough because like on a highlight, you'll put up like similar to the one you're saying, it's a bit of pressure too. Cause like, just let's take that one spot where I check back with the full house when the guy has a straight, like a straight flush, that's not going to be right all the time. And there's times where I'll check back, or even worse, right? You'll get to like play a hand and then fold, and that's kind of tricky too. Like in a spot where you're just like sure you're beat, even though you know you're supposed to call by the book, or it's like too nitty, and then you're making these plays, and then you're just going to get roasted for it, right? Like
even if you're right, you'll never know it because they don't show the cards.
Exactly, and that's tough, right? And then you just get lambasted. People are just like, oh, you're the worst. It's a nit. Like, how could you do this and that? Or how do you not value bet 2-pair in this spot when, maybe in your head, the guy's never calling. Like this particular player, you're free rolling yourself, right? Like you're either going to get check raised or he's just not.
Or maybe we've just done something really stupid, as all human beings do, and that's just totally fine. And I think that within the micro stakes, the small stakes, and the high stakes, there are so many people that take poker so seriously. And I get it, it's a lot of money. But at the same time, if somebody does something stupid, you'll get even the highest stakes players just being like, that guy's a fucking idiot. And they'll say it to like thousands of people. Right. And that's so mean. Like saying even a mean thing in front of one other person is a bit like, well, that's a bit bitchy. But saying it to thousands of people. So I always like to be in the mindset of poker's just a game. We don't need to take it seriously. We can all just have fun. We don't need to judge someone else just because that'd be worse than you at poker.
And I'll say this, I have noticed this in the past couple years, like year or two in particular, but I think the attitude for poker players and people doing content in particular, Twitch, streaming, YouTube, there has been a bit of a shift within the high stakes community or the pro players, because I feel like, I remember at one point Kevin Martin, let's just take him for example. I'm sure you're familiar with Kevin. He got signed by Poker Stars and he was playing like $20, $10 tournaments mostly, and people were outraged. They were like, this is a joke. He's not good. He's not a good player. He's not good for the game. How could you not sign so-and-so? But it's been a total shift from like the players winning high roller EPTs and the biggest events and bracelet winners. That used to be the deals. These sites were paying guys that had no interest, no, not supporting the game, really not supporting the community, not engaging with people. And they were getting ridiculous contracts. And then it sort of in like maybe 3-4 years ago, sort of shifted to streamers, content creators, people that want to put the game in a good light. And I think there was like a really negative approach to that, right? And now I think that people sort of get it. Like, listen, if you're the crushers of the world of the game, you got to understand too, like the game has an ecosystem and you need the people in there streaming, putting out Twitch content, whether they're good players, average players, not great players. That's how people, how the game is promoted, right? So I think there's sort of like an acceptance, like, all right, yeah, this guy is not the best player in the world, or he's not GTO in every spot, but he is trying hard. He loves the game, and people love to learn, and people are learning. There's always abilities. There's always gonna be someone better than you. There's always gonna be someone who needs to learn from you, and that's what's cool about Twitch. You can kind of tap into both sides. Like I can help people learn, and also I can learn. And I can put my stuff out there, and there's times where a troll or someone will say something really nasty, but yeah, they might be right even, right? Or it's like a great player who's like,
we might just suck, who knows?
And he's like, yeah, man, like, dude, how could you do that? And then you start thinking about it and you're like, yeah, you know what? That probably was my best. But you also got to remember, hey, I was streaming. I had 6 tables going, and
and I'm a human being.
Yes.
Out of interest, so I think this is probably going to be like a modest estimate, but let's say you're like top 1%. You're probably higher than that, but top 1% of poker players that have ever played poker, that have played it like and tried to take it seriously. I'd say in results and in skill, like 1% is probably easy. Do you, given that information, but looking back at how you've been over the last few years, do you still have moments where you seriously doubt your own poker abilities?
I waver because there's times where I'll look back or I'll have a bad day grinding, like losing, I'm playing on party, the 500s, 2Ks, 1Ks, and I'll look back, I'll have a bad day or something. I'll be like, man, that day just was trash. Like what happened? Like I couldn't get going. I was running bad or whatever. Or I played bad. And then there's days where like I'll play and I'll have, a great result. And I'll be like, man, I was playing 2 tables. Like my screens kind of went to hell. And then I just had like a couple tables and I really navigated well and final table and went well. I'm like, you know what? I think I'm like one of the better players playing 1 or 2 tables. And then I started like, I have this like dichotomy where I'm like thinking in my head, like, I just see the answer, play less tables, focus, enjoy the Twitch, take the take the chat and really embrace it and engage with it and play less tables. And that's the way to go. And then there's days where like, you know what, I just want to play everything. And then it doesn't go well. So I kind of go back and forth. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm like, sometimes like, I don't know if I really am playing well. And then I feel like I'm very dialed in too. So I definitely waver. And I think again, sorry, this is your podcast, so I just get fired up.
I love hearing about it, man. We haven't had the
I just love. I've accepted. You work with mind coaches at all? Do you do any stuff with like Elliot Rowe or any guys like that? Like any of the sort of mental side, like coaching actually, or?
I've got my own team of people that help me. Not full-time hired team, but people that I would consider gurus of mine. But obviously, you could whittle that down to emotional and psychological gurus. But I do a lot of work on that kind of stuff, not just for poker, but for my charity as well.
I will say this too, because then I want to ask you about this particularly, but I had a turning point in my career for sure when I started working with Elliot Rowe, doing some stuff with him. And
I've spoken to Elliot, great.
Yeah, he in August of 2018 or 19, I guess, or I don't even know now. It's hard to say. Maybe it was 2 years ago. I'd have to think about it. But I was in Barcelona. I actually spoke to him the first day when I found out my wife was pregnant. We were in Barcelona there, and I found so it was 2019, so 2018 August, and I talked with him, and I was playing a tournament, and we started breaking stuff down. I started thinking about everything, and I was like, you know what? I had my first 2 losing World Series of Pokers was 2017 and 2018. Okay, so I started thinking about it out loud. I was like, I've won 10 years in a row. I've used Raise Your Edge.
10 years in a row is insane.
What's that?
10 years in a row is insane.
Yeah, I never had a losing year. Final tables, most summers, like good years. And then I looked and I saw I was negative in 2017. I was negative in 2018. And I started thinking about it out loud. And then I started looking at other stuff. I was like, well, you know, I have this, I'm doing that. I have that arrangement. Things have gone well. And then I talked to him and sort of looked at it. And I said, what's different? Guess what happened in 2017? I started my YouTube channel doing vlogs in the summer at the World Series. Unbelievably big undertaking, just in terms of even having help with the editing, you know, filming, learning it, titles, descriptions, thumbnails, you know, having all these different things. I started looking at it, and what was different? I was coming to tournaments 4 or 5 hours late. I was, you know, coming to these 1500s, 1Ks, 2500, 5Ks with 20 blinds, 15 blinds, late regging, not on time. I'm on my phone. I'm filming. I'm recording.
Being on the phone is such a huge thing.
I just imagine as you like not even you like put it in your bag and at the end of the day, or not even on break or just breaks. But like I was completely unpresent, not even like to the point where it was even like almost a joke. Like I was there more to like create the video or like play the tournament. Even I look at your Hendon Mob and I see it's a lot of quality. It just sort of, I can tell what you're playing and how you're doing it. Like I was playing every event. I would bust the tournament, hop in late on a mixed game or something at that day. I just wasn't resting. I was playing every event and just going through, you know, quantity over quality. But it really looked at it. I was like, I'm on my phone, I'm not present, and I'm late registering. So like I'm running bad for sure, but I'm also in there with like, I'm losing ace, king to ace, jack, but I have 15 blinds, you know, I'm all in, like whatever, right? Like, it's like the game is taken away. You're not, but I used to be there on the start, you know, chipping up, big stack, lower variance, doing that. So like, anyway, that was a huge realization. And then I said, well, I just need to be aware. I don't have to necessarily change or shift, or maybe I can make some change. And instead of coming so late, I could come 2 hours earlier, do the stuff from the table, be on my phone, but at least be there earlier. And then I started realizing I have to make a choice and just be okay with that. As long as you're aware, if you know what you're doing, it's a big difference to be aware.
Yeah, as long as you bring it from the subconscious to the conscious, then you're in the right place.
Yeah, because it's like, look, I don't have to have the best results in the world, but I'm doing stuff. I get into sponsorship. I'm doing good for the game. I'm helping. I'm doing other things. But I'm not going to be the best version of myself on the table. And I'm okay with that. As long as I can understand and relate and realize there's a trade-off and make sure I make a choice on what I want to do. That's important. And that was like a huge realization to sort of realize that, yeah, I'm shifting from full-time grinder poker player to different, you know, So anyway, that was like a big mental kind of like trying to understand what was happening and why, and is that right or wrong, and maybe not right or wrong, just be that it is what it is, and then make a choice and be aware of it. So anyway, I want to ask you about get fired up thinking about it, because it's very for me.
I feel the passion, man. It's great.
Yeah,
Can tell you've been sitting on these thoughts for a while.
Yeah, and for you though, so give me like how off your phone, or how do you do the YouTube content, and how do you balance with being present, being on time, and getting all this other stuff done, and sort of documenting your journey?
Yeah, so for me, the way that I would try and make all of these decisions is, again, pretty intuitively. I think that it's such a multivariate analysis to be able to judge how much you should be doing one thing in your life and how much you should be doing another thing in your life. So for instance, when I'm playing Twitch, sometimes I can table and be talking to the chat, and I'll be absolutely fine. I can sometimes be on my phone sending a happy message, but that's only if everything else in the day has kind of like gone very smoothly and I'm feeling great, my energy's great. But then sometimes if I'm at the table and I'll just look at my phone once every 5-10 minutes, that's still too much to distract me, because everything else just isn't in place, and I really need to put all of my focus into that one thing. Right. So I generally will, in live poker, stay off my phone. I do have the habit, the proclivity of getting distracted talking to people, because I'm such a talkative person when I'm at the table. Right. And if there's another talkative person at the table, then I feel sorry for the other people at the table, but it often just goes off on one. But it's definitely, like you said at the beginning, poker's such like a microcosm of real life. You get so many little instances where you get taught a life lesson just in a little moment of poker. And I think when people are switched onto that, then you get such an intense evolution, or a spiritual or emotional or psychological evolution, in such a short space of time. But I do think that there are quite a lot of people that aren't super switched onto that, that won't be bringing these things from the back of their mind to the front of their mind.
Yes, it's really interesting. I just think the metaphor with poker and life too, and like you said about learning too, about people, you play with people, you get to know someone pretty well at the table, just like golf. I don't know if you play sports or golf, anything? Not much.
Play squash. That's about it.
Yeah, but but if you ever, like, I'm not a big golfer myself, but I think it's a really cool game. It's social, it's fun. I used to think it's trash, right? Like I was like, how could people do this? It's so boring or whatever. But it's like you get to learn about people. You play poker with someone, you're gonna get to kind of know, like, how do they handle beats? How do they handle adversity? How are they happy? Are they positive? Are they like happy for you? Is it all about them?
Who's going to slow roll you? Who you can slow roll back?
Yeah, like all these type of things. So it's like you can really start to get a bit of a feel on somebody, how they handle stuff and their emotions, and how they're balanced or not. But anyway, yeah, it's great. And the live and online, I think that's the bridge with Twitch. That it's different, right? Because live, when you're playing online, you kind of lose that. It's not the same, but like if you have a pretty good engagement, people are talking to you, you're chatting back, they're talking, it's on a delay, but you're engaging. It sort of gives you that live vibe. Like you said, there's people, there's like sort of like there's someone to report. There's something you have to be like, you're responsible in a way, like you're accountable, right? It's like a guy's gonna see how
like a constant feedback loop from the people that are watching, saying this is bad, this is good, and then everything that you do, within 125 seconds, whatever your delay is, then you get to find out what people think about it, or at least what some people, more vocal people, think about it. I absolutely love twitching. I absolutely love the interaction with people in the chat. And I'll sometimes, as you can see right there, my last one, I just got on with Hannah and we just asked questions to the audience and they asked questions back, and we got some hyper personal topics covered, some really like stuff that would be controversial in other circles, but because we created, and the people that were watching it created such a positive atmosphere, nobody was being judgmental. We were asking, like, what's the most embarrassing thing you've ever done, and some of them were like, fuck, that's really bad. If you said that publicly, you get annihilated. But because it was a positive atmosphere, then everyone was just like, dude, we've done stupid shit, don't worry about it.
Yeah, it is cool, man. Twitch is very special. I think I don't want to say it's saved poker, but I think in a world of solvers and scraping and kind of online, just how everything's shipped.
Don't get me started on solvers, man. I can't. I've got too many rants in me.
Yeah, it's just thinking like it's sort of combated. There's been a I think the content, right? I don't want to say Twitch in particular, but I just think like the broadcasting, the content, the sort of engagement, the YouTube. Now, I want to bring this up just because actually this is what happened in 2017. I told you I started my YouTube channel. Literally just got a camera. Jamie Staples had told me about it. We did a stream house in Montreal. He was like, "You're missing out, man. You got to do YouTube. It's like, you know, you're gonna like it. It's blah blah." I was like, "I don't know. It's like, seems like whatever." I go to the World Series. I pick it up, walking around doing my thing. Then I'd play a tournament, kind of don't know what I'm doing, just sort of like filming. And the guy comes up to me and he goes, I have my camera. I'm in like a 1500 WSOP event. He looks at me on a break and he comes over to me. And I've been streaming for a couple of years now, right? So like I'd already been doing some content and I thought he was going to say like, I love your stream or something or whatever, just because he's like, hey man, how's it going? And then he goes, do you know Doug Polk? And I say, yeah. I was like, I know Doug. He's like, he said, the reason I'm here, he said, the reason I'm in this WSOP is because I watch his vlogs and he was from California. Cool. And he was like, that's why I'm here. He's like, do you know him? And I was like, yeah, no, I know him. That's whatever. But I had just started like my YouTube maybe 2 weeks ago. But that was when I realized that content matters. You know, content, people are watching, people are looking, people are learning, people are relating to stuff. So it's like you have an impact, and even people that are polarizing, you know, maybe you really don't like them or you do like them. That was when I sort of realized like it matters. It has an impact. People are coming, people are seeing it, and it does matter. And it happened to be Doug Polk. I did, you know, I know you and him had a tiff. I don't want to spend really any time on it other than just, is there an update like on what have you guys resolved? You talk, is there any, like, was there any closure on that? Or I honestly don't even know what happened other than there was some back and forth. And, you know, Doug's very polarizing again. He takes something, makes a thing, gets a lot of hits and views and does this sort of thing. And he's kind of out of poker now anyway, but is there any, do you have any words on that, on what happened, or what is it off, closed, or where is that?
Yeah, so we haven't had any closure on it, at least mutually, but I would say about maybe a month ago, I finally got to the point where I'd say I can almost completely say I've forgiven him. And it was one of those situations where it was definitely a huge learning lesson for me, where basically I spoke publicly, which I've done a bunch of times, but it was on Twitter, which was a mistake, about the most controversial topic you can ever speak about. And it's something that's affected me and my girlfriends quite significantly. And it's pedophilia and child molestation. And it's something that we've both suffered at from when we were younger. And it's something that we both have quite a large drive to try and change the world so there's less of it happening, so fewer people suffer in the way that we have. And that often comes from suffering. You empathize and then you want to change stuff.
Okay.
So I made a comment which was a very polarizing comment, and I don't want to say it again because I know how polarizing it is, unless you give like half an hour of context and you bring on a scientist and you bring on a psychologist and stuff like that.
Don't say it. And I actually don't, like, that's what I'm saying. I follow a lot of, I try to keep an eye on stuff and watch whatever I can and just stay in tune. I don't even know what you're referencing. So, but yeah, don't say it. But okay, so this happened, and then.
Yeah. So I think Doug had like a personal jihad against me for a while. I'd spoken publicly criticizing the way that he was being quite mean to other people, and he had always kind of stayed quiet. And he then made this YouTube video that was just really ripping into me, taking so many things that I was doing, so many things that I was saying out of context.
Right.
It came just after I'd banked a huge tournament for 1.3 million pounds, and it was my biggest ever score. So it was this really like high and then crash of my emotions because it really hit me hard. Because it's such a personal subject. And he took so many things that I said out of context and really just put his YouTube channel at my throat. And it really, really hurt me emotionally. It really, really got to me. And it really triggered out a lot of things that came from like when I was younger and I was bullied and things like that. But at the same time, I want to say that even though I think that he was completely in the wrong for doing what he did, I do think that Doug in general is a really cool person. And I think that even though he's a very polarizing in his actions, I do think he genuinely does care about doing the right thing. But I think that he maybe hasn't quite dealt with his own demons, and he'd much rather point the finger at other people's ostensible demons. But yeah, even though he did what I consider at least to be quite cruel things to me, I still think he's an incredible human being. He's so driven. He's so funny. He's done great things for poker. He's one of those people that is such a good achiever. And I think that if he channeled his energy in a really positive way, he could be a huge force in the world. So yeah, I don't like getting in Twitter beef. I don't like getting in YouTube beef.
Yeah.
To me, it's kind of childish, and it's kind of it's something that goes with the poker world. But I try to stay out of it. But yeah, I've only got love for the guy now.
All right, that's great to hear. I mean, I think that's a huge part of these type of things. It's important to kind of forgive or move on or realize, look at things from a different perspective. Also, that's something my dad taught me a lot, is like, it's not about what happens, it's how you react to what happens, because stuff's going to happen, right? People are going to die.
You're going to downswing.
People are going to you're going to downswing, or whatever extreme you want to take at. Looking at Black Friday, for example, for me, that was just like an example of like, oh, that's for many people. It was like, this is it. Like, I'm USA. I live wherever. I'm not going to be able to, do what I'm doing. I can't play from home. It's like, that's my career, sort of like over or change. And then it turns into be a huge positive. So it's like, just looking at events or things that can shift or maybe get you to feel emotion or drive you in a way that can take you to a different level. So no, that's great to hear that's how you are approaching that. And again, I'm not very aware of what happened, but that sounds good that that's the way you're coming about it. And hopefully that you guys move forward and there's no, whatever, it's resolved or however it is. I will say too, with Doug, like I had Alec Torelli on my podcast recently.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And we didn't even go there, but same kind of thing. It's Doug has such a following and an impact, like, right. You can really, just like in media, you can take clips or put stuff together or make stuff look however. So it's kind of tricky, right? You can really drive and do something and make things go away. I mean, also, I'll just say too, Doug, it's just like his way of, I've heard him like say stuff about what he thinks the streamers or I'm sorry, people are getting paid different salaries of how he has like his opinion or his thing, and he's not always on.
You need to make 100K a year to be to be professional, to be successful in poker or something like that.
Well, no, well, yeah, and it just in terms of again, it's personal stuff. People always, how much do you get paid by a star? How much are you getting paid by parties and that? Like they're saying his like how he perceives or projects or kind of puts his words on stuff. Like I think he's just misinformed in certain things, but it's like his way of sort of demeaning or sort of taking away from some people. And I don't know. Like again,
there are definitely people in the world that like to drag others down. But at the same time, I would still like to say that I think he thinks he's doing the right thing. And I think he's coming in some ways from a really good place.
Yeah.
I just think it's one of those weird things about the internet is that we have so many unelected officials now that have more influence than actual politicians because they either have millions of subscribers or in Doug's case, hundreds of thousands. And people haven't been trained, they haven't gone to university to utilize their following. They haven't been taught how to speak in front of hundreds of thousands of people. They haven't been taught the repercussions of saying something that might be completely inaccurate in front of hundreds of thousands of people. So it's not a surprise. And I think almost all of us would make huge mistakes if we were speaking like that in front of that many people. And so I think it's completely understandable that he's kind of missed the stick on that one.
Yeah, no, again, I think Doug's done a lot for poker, a lot for he means well. I think my interactions with him always been positive, and I think he's he like you said, we'll leave it there. That's it. So it's good that is addressed, and I hope that everything moves in the right direction with that. I saw you mentioned that was your biggest. Was it 1 point? You're talking about the 1.3 million pound. Is this the one? And the
shout out to Trident. Before Trident, I hadn't played poker for a year. So I took a year out to work on my charities, and it was such a nice feeling because every single time I come back to poker, there are people just being like, "There's no way he can start winning again," and then like have a lucky bank is like, even if I suck, I'm still making money.
Yeah, that I don't know about luck. I mean, look at that lineup, look at that final table. I think I was doing the commentary for many of this stuff here, and I was getting to see a lot of your play. I mean, that was that's a very healthy healthy score. So look at that lineup. That was not a easy walk through there. What was that's your biggest score of your career? Or
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. 1.6. So what after that, was there any kind of like, all right, I'm going to do this more, do it less, or you're just kind of content with, because that's what I'm saying. Your range is like no one's. You playing 50Ks, 100Ks, and then you're doing a $50 bankroll challenge. I mean, that to me is incredible. How do you go from playing a 50K and winning 1.6 million US dollars to doing a $50 10K bankroll? What does the mindset take to do that?
Yeah, I just love poker. I love the challenge, and as much as people say that it's not, micro stakes is challenging. It's not hard to win in the long run if you're a good player. That's almost always going to happen. But there are certain spots where you could be making like 5 BP per hundreds over a large sample more if you're paying more attention and exploiting people in different ways. And so it's still an unperfected game. Like if you're playing the bankroll challenge, or if you're playing like 2NL even, it's still a game that you could try and be the best in the world at playing 2NL. So there's an art to exploiting bad players or people who are new to the game. There's an art to exploiting recreational players. And I find that just as fascinating, or maybe not quite just as fascinating, but almost as I do trying to exploit the best players in the world.
And what is you said you stopped or paused? Did you pick up the bankroll challenge, or is this a separate one? Because you said that you were doing one and then you didn't complete it. Did you pick that up where it was, or was this a brand new fresh start?
Yeah, it's the same one.
Same one. So when you paused, what was it at? How much?
I can't remember. I went from like 50 to 200 in about 10 sessions, and maybe 300. I can't remember. And then picked it up again about 2 weeks ago.
And that's when you had a bink, as you said. It was almost more satisfaction, or just the more electric than winning almost any kind of event. You felt it, and it was on Twitch.
$500, man.
And you did it live on Twitch.
Yeah.
How many? How did you get going on Twitch? When did you start that? And how is that? Is that something that have you gone in big waves of like streaming every day for a week or two, and then you're off for like months or even a year? Like, what's your Twitch schedule look like?
Yeah, I go pretty intense. I can't remember why I started. I almost zero recollection of that period of my life. I've kind of repressed. But it was a tough part of my life, and I think I was using Twitch as kind of almost an escape, because it was such a fun new world to explore. And I just loved it from day one. And something I found quite quickly is that it really helps you fine tune different aspects of your personality. So for instance, I think I've got significantly more articulate since I've been on Twitch, because you have to practice talking all the time, something that poker players don't have to do ever. And I think I've got particularly more thick skin since being on Twitch, because you have to deal with trolls every now and again, or sometimes all the time if you've got a larger audience. So there's a lot of things that Twitch bring me.
And if you could have your optimal Twitch session, what would it look like in terms of tables? Do you find that with engaging in the chat and then being able to play, because what would you equate to? What do you think it equates streaming for tables? Like, let's say you're playing 4 8-max tables in a tournament, and then you stream on Twitch. Does that add 1 table, 2 tables, 4 tables? What kind of concentration equivalent do you think that is?
Yeah, it depends. It depends how much you're interacting with them. But if I'm going full interaction, that's probably like a good 12 tables for me, because I'll be asking questions, I'll be answering questions, and I'll be going so personal, and I'll be being so vulnerable that all of my attention is on just like, don't make yourself so vulnerable that you're going to end up like shedding a tear in front of thousands of people, and you're going to lose track of poker and all of these different things. But then if you're just speaking about poker and you're just commentating, and you're answering a few questions about why you see it in a certain spot, then maybe like 2 or 3 tables.
Yeah, I would say, I keep I'm almost today. I'm going to stream after this, and I might even just do it. Like I think that Somerville, he was obviously like the original OG streamed, and I've seen him streaming some again now, which is great. Does run it up, done a ton for poker. He's a big proponent of like the 1 table. He plays 1 table and just
wow. I didn't know that. That's strong.
Maybe 2, or maybe, and then he's got some on his background, but he is just, it's incredible to watch. And part of me just wants to do that, because but it's just tough, because then it's like, oh, you bust out.
One tabling's hard, man.
Yeah, maybe
It's so hard.
I just don't know. I want to I just really want to. I really want to do it. I just don't know if I it's just so hard to if you like bust and then you just like pick up something. So maybe like 2 is the answer or something.
Yeah, maybe if you just set the intention of just having fun that stream and interacting with people, and it's not like a huge tournament, then that might be okay. But it really is a test of like your Zen skills if you're one tabling a really important tournament. If it's like really important but not super important, then it's really tough. If it's like the most important tournament you're ever going to play, then it's so easy to one table, because every single raise and take it that someone else gets, you're like, oh my god, the chips have changed.
Yeah.
But when it's like a kind of important, when it's like a 5K or something like that, then you just be like, oh, man, I want my brain's just going like 12 other places. Like I'm wanting to play chess on the side or something like that. It's like, come on, I need something else.
Have you played any of these poker masters? Are you going to play any coming up this weekend, or have you looked at those at all? Or do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I've played the 25Ks a couple of times, but the time schedules are just so brutal for me, because I wake up early usually, and now I then have to play until like 6 a.m. if I do well, and then I've got a day 2, and then it's really rough for me. But I'll probably play a few more of the Poker Masters. I'll probably play this Sunday if they're on.
Yeah, I'm going to play the Sunday 10K. I think the Sundays they obviously are bigger, right? I mean, that should be over. It's like they're guaranteeing 500K, but probably get $1 million. It's real names as well, which is interesting on there. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the real name structure stuff that party's trying, and also the no HUDs? What do you think about HUDs?
I think HUDs are stupid. I use a HUD because everyone else is using a HUD. Mm-hmm. But I think it's such an unfair advantage to recreational players. It's so stupid. It's like people have this extra database of information on these players and they're not even aware of it. So we're essentially just playing a different game. And I think it's one of the more, along with scripts, I think it's one of the more predatory parts of poker. But at the same time, if you want to be successful grinding up in the stakes, you have to get a HUD, because all the other regs have got a HUD and they got stats on you. So it's one of those.
Do you feel it's refreshing to know party poker is outlawed HUDs and everyone
I love that. Absolutely love that. Yeah. And I think the real name thing's pretty cool. I've now managed to change my party poker screen name, so nobody knows what my party poker screen name is, and I love it so much. I just like limp the first hand, get my fish label, and then just min raise bluff everything, and everything works again. I finally got fold equity again, because everyone knows I'm crazy. Everyone knows that I bluff all the time, so I've had to like stop bluffing in some spots. But now I can I've just gone mental, having a great time.
And what do you think about with that? Do you feel that you're giving up a decent advantage with streaming in terms of playing the high stakes? Do you have a rule? Is that something you try not to do? Because even like that's kind of fun, right? The bankroll challenge in that sense, where you're not worried about giving stuff away or whatnot. But if you're playing the 25Ks and stuff, and your whole cards are up, and you have your notes are showing, or your color on a guy, or you're doing stuff versus them, like do you ever level yourself? Do you ever look at it and say, oh, this guy's been watching me, or maybe he's watching and I'm going to play differently, or do you just kind of just do your thing?
Yeah, I level myself, not because I think that they might be watching, but because I guess it's because I think that they might think certain things about me. So like, because people have watched me stream, they now probably understand exactly how crazy I am when I play. Like I'm one of the most aggressive high stakes regulars, maybe the most that's been successful in the high stakes. And there are certain spots where I just have never been called down, but now I assume at least some hands of like people have seen them. So I level myself being like, I probably shouldn't bluff this spot now, because they might have seen some other thing, or they might have heard it from someone else. So I do think that it can be a detriment, but at the same time, I'm a big believer in the spiritual, esoteric energy shit. I love having loads of people behind me, and the Twitch run good seems to be pretty real when the energy's good.
Yes, energy is powerful. There's no question about it. How do you feel about this 10 million? Do you look at your Hen and Mob? Are you aware of like your GPI? Is that stuff you've chased? Do you say, I'm going to hit 10 million? Is that like a goal of yours? Any of that kind of stuff? Or do you just sort of play and don't pay attention? Where do you fall on that spectrum?
So I used to have the goal that I wanted to be the best poker player in the world. When I first started playing poker and I shot through the ranks at a time where people said that it was almost impossible to do so, I was like, okay, I really want to be the best player in the world. But a moment came where I decided that I was going to start one of my charities, by the way, first charity launching in 2 months. So excited to tell people about it.
I want to hear about that for sure and show your
I'm
website.
so excited for it, man. My life and soul has gone into this baby. But I made a decision. I was meditating and I was like, if I'm gonna do this, if I'm gonna start this charity, I can't play poker as much as I was before. And I actually made the decision to completely stop playing poker. And only since I've now had a bit of a slow period, turns out charities take a lot longer to start than I thought, because of all the fucking bureaucracy and paperwork and whatnot. Only because there's been a slow period, I've kind of engaged with poker again. But yeah, I went from wanting to be the best poker player in the world and looking at all of my ratings and rankings and stuff to I have no idea now. I wouldn't know how to rank in GPI or anything like that.
And interesting though about the charity stuff makes sense though, right? Because it's a pretty intense thing where there's a lot. I hear a lot too about a lot of charities, they take this percent, or it's like there are scams out there in general, right? Like the scam is such a nasty word. It's like to use charity and scam even in the same sentence, it's sort of like gives me like the
yeah, it gives me the heebie-jeebies too. But it's true. There's so many people just siphoning off the top, even if it's a direct scam. But yeah, that's why in my charities I've made sure that not a single person who I'm hiring is going to be paid anything but their wage, and I'm not taking a single penny from anything that's connected to my charity. So
that's amazing. And like I said, that's what I'm saying. It makes sense that there's a lot of paperwork. It's not just like anyone can say, oh, I'm doing this thing. I mean, there's these GoFundMes and other stuff, and where it's like it's kind of hard to say, or they take up, so it's like it's a bit of a tricky thing. But so you're saying it takes time, it takes effort. You got to learn it. You got to make sure it's done right. You got to have protocols.
I make a lot of mistakes as well.
Yes, and do that. So tell us a little bit about before, because I do want to hit. We have about 100 questions, which is pretty wild. I mean, there's 100.
Oh man, just seeing Twitter makes my stomach just.
Well, I don't want to make you. Yeah, I don't want to get you.
See me throw up on stream. Yeah, sorry, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, I was gonna say. So it's on your website here. Where can we look at this to talk about a little bit more and when that's going to be available for people to get involved? And here's you do have a website and you do some coaching and whatnot. But is this where the charity is on here or no?
Yeah, the charity website is going to be live in the next month.
Okay.
It's I'm not even going to give out the.
Then that's fine.
But yeah, everything's kind of bubbling up until we go for the big launch, and I've got a lot of media planned to launch it. But the website, I sell a masterclass, and we're actually going to be launching a spiritual masterclass, which is going to be focused on helping people navigate their emotions and different aspects of spirituality and psychology, all directed to being successful in a particular domain, often poker, but also other domains as well. So that's few things I've got going on behind the scenes.
Very cool. And is this the best way if people want to follow? You don't have a Twitter or you don't use it. Is Instagram, is that the best way to stay in touch with you, or I mean, you have your Twitch, you have YouTube, but in terms of sort of active content, stories and whatnot, are you pretty active on Instagram?
I have a company posting for me on Instagram, but I do make sure that I read every single message that I get, because I'm not super duper famous. So I can take a few minutes out a day to read all the messages, even if I can't reply to them all. So if anyone wants to reach out and say hi and share, I love it when people share really personal messages or personal life stories with me. That makes me really happy.
Okay, well so that's a good, guys. If you're watching, give him a follow, check it out, and if you want to send a message, he will at least see it. He can't respond obviously to everything, but you'll take a peek and try to do your best. Obviously, that's can't do it all, but you try. And what about YouTube? Your YouTube channel, which is over 30,000, very, very strong growth. You've been doing this for how long? And is this something, looks like you have
no idea how long I've been doing it.
You have a steady flow going here though. It looks like, I mean, there's
I stopped for a while, but since our Lord Corona has allowed us all the graceful indoor time with our friends and family, then I've spent a lot of time posting daily content at the moment on YouTube.
And for you, is this something, looking back, I mean, is it fun for you? Do you ever scroll through? Because like how I look at YouTube is kind of like a journal, and in a way where I look at like some vlogs, highlights, and it's kind of cool to like go back, because it sort of blends together in poker, in my opinion. You go to Vegas, you're in Monaco. It's like it's like, what year was that? What happened? It's kind of cool to have a reference pointer, to have a sort of a catalog of stuff. Do you look at it that way, or how do you view you know, you're putting out content for people to engage and learn. But what has been, I guess, your favorite part of having a YouTube channel and having content?
Yeah, it's a really interesting way of looking at it. I've never thought of it like that at all, but maybe I could, because yeah, I never scroll back through my other videos. I never really, I watch all my videos once and then never look at them again. But that's kind of cool, because I've never had the motivation to keep a journal or a diary if you're English. And I've always wanted to, because I think that you can get so much fun out of one experience by remembering it over and over and over again. And, you know, a journal can help you do that. So maybe I will start seeing YouTube like that. Maybe I'll start adding a bit more of my personality into it if I started like that.
Very cool. And what about kids? You're young, 26. Is that something? Do you look at down the line? Is that something you would ideally like to have? Is a family and children?
Yeah. So when I was younger, I always used to think that I'd never have kids. I was like, it's so illogical. But now it's yeah, I can't wait. I think it's going to be at least 5, probably 10 years before I have a child, because I've got a lot I want to achieve in the philanthropy sector and in poker and in business and stuff like that. But having now been with somebody that I'm absolutely in love with, that has really changed me as a person, helped me mature, it's really opened my eyes up to how beautiful it could be to have children. So for you, was it as life-changing as they say it is?
Yeah, well, you know, I met my now wife at Burning Man, so we got a Burning Man.
That's sick, man.
Can't really,
no way.
That on the playa, I love. They say there's no love like.
Were you both sober?
What's that?
Were you both sober?
Yeah.
When you met?
Well, she was. I actually, it's funny because I met her at like 7 in the morning, and she was doing the sunrise sort of routine, like get up at 5:30. I was doing the other routine, the late.
I love that. It's my favorite moment in any festival, watching about 6, 7, 8 a.m. when the only people that are up are like the yogis and the people on MDMA that are coming down. It's such a beautiful watching them interact, being like, hello, how are you? And they're like,
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I was actually with Philip Gruesome. His bike got stolen, and I was with him, and I was on my bike, and our group kind of was going to this other exhibit, and then I was walking with him on my bike, like, so just, he was walking, I was just kind of rolling next to him, and then, you know, my now wife walked by, and I turned around, and she turned around, and then I went back over to her, started talking to her, and Phil was with me. And
dude, shout out to that. Shout out to the confidence of being able to just turn around and talk to someone. That's 99% of people don't have that.
Well, you know, I had it was a fun night. It was fun times, man. It was good. Burning Man. Have you not been to Burning Man?
I look like the kind of person that might live there, but it's not. I've never been.
You should, once the world gets back in order, you should take a peek there. I think that would be a fun. You would have a good time. I think anyone would have a good time, but just extra, like, your sort of vibe definitely has that sort of flow to it. I think it'd be worth checking out. I would just say put it on your calendar for the future. Speaking of COVID-19, it's almost become numb. You know, I've done a fair amount of podcasts during the time, like, to check in. It's almost at this point, like, I don't want to say, it's just kind of like, all right, it is what it is. But how has that impacted you? Have you had any difference in lifestyle? Is there any sort of extra, you know, message or learning you've had during this time, or what you would say on the overall situation?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've got a few conspiracy theories I'm not going to mention that I have about COVID-19. I've seen some things behind the scenes that I'm very skeptical of it all, but obviously it's a very serious.
My wife's in your camp. She's very.
Oh yeah.
She's, you know, USA hasn't been in the moon. This type of stuff, like, you know,
that's a big one.
Yeah, that's a big one for sure. But no, I hear what you're saying. Obviously, there's it either is or isn't, right? Either something happened, or it was an accident, or it wasn't. It's kind of ace king to queens, most likely.
Yeah, right? I know what you mean. Yeah, it's really easy to get lost in conspiracy theories, so I try not to. But I do definitely hold a lot of secret opinions on that kind of stuff, and I've heard some things about COVID-19. But anyway, that aside, I've enjoyed the time so much. My life has got significantly better since COVID-19, and obviously you and I are both in positions of absolute privilege. That, you know, our profession is online. We're not affected by it. We're young and healthy. We're unlikely to die if we do get it. all of the disclaimers that it's a very serious problem for a lot of people, and to die of a disease is probably one of the worst ways to go. So it's not something to laugh at, but at the same time, to find the good in the bad. It's brought a lot of people inwards instead of outwards, I think. Like a lot of people, even though you can distract yourself at home, it's hard to distract yourself all day, every day. And I think a lot of people have had kind of their routine shoved in their face, being like, hey, you're not being productive. Hey, you're not being productive. Hey, you're not being, and they don't have any excuses now. They can't be like, well, I work all day. Right. So I think a lot of people have kind of turned to new skills. A lot of people have turned to spirituality. A lot of people have turned to connecting with other people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think a lot of really cool things are going to come from COVID-19.
Yeah, and there was some talk. I saw some yeah, even just for obvious reasons, creativity wise, I think, you know, it's one of those things where you're going to end up hearing about something was created, or, you know, some people were forced into. Even for myself, it's like being able to. I want to use the word FOMO, right? Like it's like, oh, there's that event going on, you got this obligation, or there's a friend's wedding, and it's just like so many like kind of stuff happening, right? Where it's like, all right, you're just doing what you do, and maybe you get to optimize, you get to learn a language, you get to create something, or focus in on something, or grow something, and do something more productive. So I think overall, you know, hopefully everything gets back to normal, and whatever that means, like in a way where they're operating. But I think the world also has like a pause from pollution, from other things, maybe the law, like people are able to sit back, take a look at some things, and sort of like a world reset, which, you know, it's crazy. It's hopefully will be a once in a lifetime event where there's something like this kind of for us, right? Like it seems like this happens about every 100 years or so. There's some kind of like the Spanish flu or some sort of pandemic that's like really makes everyone stop and pause. And I think now it's obviously with technology, it's the first time ever, right, where everyone's like, it's like we're all stopped, but we're all engaged, and there's information, and everyone's sort of taking it all in at once. So it's a very unique and yeah, it's a crazy spot, right? So it's in a moment in time. So don't forget.
Yeah, one really cool thing that's come from it, just last thing to say on it, is that homelessness, which is one of my charities is going to be tackling within the UK, has had huge leaps and bounds just overnight. And it's really, even though I think that the government's probably just going to put them back on the street, they've housed them temporarily for some amount of time to stop the virus from spreading throughout the UK. Okay. And it's set a precedent saying this is what you're capable of. And now people can look at that and be like, well, if you could do that during COVID-19 when our economy is crashing, why can't you do it now? So what charity is going to be doing is a lot of political lobbying. I've been taking behind the scenes politics lessons for quite a while now, and I really think this is going to be a huge movement, not just for the UK, but I think it could also then have a spring effect to other countries, being like, look what the government can do when it really has to do it. So it's one really exciting thing that's coming from it.
Absolutely. Let me ask you about the charity that you're working with. You know, I know, speaking of Philip Grusom, Reg, Liberi, these guys, the Reg charity does a lot. And that's one of their things. They're basically saying, look, we're going to raise for effective giving. We're going to find a way and put it to the best place, make sure it's not, money's not coming off the top, or, you know, do the best of the ability. And they've been very active, vocal, and involved in poker. What are your thoughts on Reg? How does your charity, how will it differ? What would be the difference between just sort of partnering or doing something and getting involved with Reg versus doing what you're doing? What is talk to me a little bit about what the differences would be and what you think about Reg.
Yeah, I don't know enough about Reg. I know the people, and every single one of them that I've met, including Liv, Philip, Igor, people like that, they've all just been such beautiful people, and they've all been so articulate and intelligent and good-hearted, and they've really wanted to do good things in the world. So I can't imagine there's much bad stuff going on in Reg. I just don't know any of the details. The difference for my charity, at least, is that what I'm envisioning is more of a movement, although we do have a lot of very specific things that we're going to be doing to tackle homelessness. I've been in contact with a lot of the CEOs and founders of the top charities within the UK. And what we're planning on doing is bringing an organization to charity and philanthropy that has never existed before. Because when you get deep into the philanthropy sector, you start realizing there's actually so many charities and so many good people out there, but there's no organizational force apart from the government, and the government just sucks at that. They're good at other stuff. They're great at post offices and stuff, but they really suck at philanthropy because they need to put everything through law. They need to, you know, it's a bureaucratic nightmare for actually trying to get stuff done.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And I mean, it's sort of one of those things, right? Be CEO or work for someone or do your own. It's sort of like, all right, they're probably doing well. They're probably doing, you know, a great job, and they're definitely being effective. But you're doing your own. You know what you want to do. You have your mission, your statement, the organizations you want to focus on, and you're able to really just take control. I mean, that seems to be what I hear you saying, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's the plan, as well as some technological innovation that we've got going on.
Very cool. All right. Well, let's. I just want to close it. Kind of again. We got a lot of questions. We'll try to just scroll through those. In terms of your, let me just look here at the Hendon Mob. Is there any other events? Is there something besides, we looked at your live? You know, you had a nice live score early. You hit the $1 million score not that long after. You start playing high rollers, and it looks like most of your buy-ins, you know, have increased. You're playing 100Ks. Is there any other moments in your career that were pivotal? Did you ever have like maybe a downswing that spurred you out of it, or anything that was like one that stands out as a special moment in your career besides?
Yeah, so two things come to mind. One is the incredible story I have for winning the Scoop main event, but I'll go for the more humiliating story, which is when I went broke. Okay. So it was sometime after I won that first 1.2 million score, and back when I was younger, back when I was between the ages of about 14 and 20, I was a compulsive liar, complete liar. It was due to all of the trauma I had as a kid. It was a defense mechanism. I had zero empathy, and I was basically just a robot out for himself, having fun. But one of the things that happened when I was playing poker is that I would sometimes lie about how much money I had. And I would lie not just to public, I would lie to my best friends, I would lie to myself, and I would lie to my girlfriends and stuff like that. And it was to do, looking back, it was to do with wanting to come across like I was super successful. Even though I'd obviously had a lot of success, I for some reason needed to come across more successful, and I thought it was plus EV to lie. And obviously it wasn't. It was, so looking back.
What period is this you're saying?
It was, so I stopped lying properly, probably like 3.5 to 4 years ago. So I think I can't remember the exact dates, but it was probably the next 6 months after that big win in Monte Carlo anyway. So what I would do is, I had this bankroll in my head, the lie bankroll that I told other people that I had, and I had a real bankroll. But for some weird cognitive dissonance reason, whenever I would play a tournament, I would put in the amount of money as though I had this imaginary bankroll. So my bankroll management was just terrible. So I went from having, I can't remember, like 600K all the way down to having about 0. And I thought I had 40K, but I was so disorganized that some people didn't owe me 40K when I thought they did. And I put 5K into a tournament, and it was my last 5K, and it was a score you'll be able to see on Hendon Mob. I came first for like $180K or something like that.
Let's see, in Ireland, Dublin.
No, it was in Monte Carlo.
Oh, Monte Carlo. Well, I see you had the 1.2 million in May of 2015. 1.2 million. Yeah. So it was after this?
Yeah, it was after that.
But it was in Monte Carlo as well?
Yeah. I can't remember exactly when it was.
I see it. Well, 5K, May 2015. Yeah.
And that was my last 5K. And after that, I went on the most insane upswing. Like I played high rollers, and I think I played 14, and I final tabled like 11 of them, which is just insane. And yeah, it was absolutely insane. The universe really had my back on that one, but it's one of those things that I could just be sitting here now being like, oh yeah, I was doing really well, and then I just went broke, and I never made it back. You know, I got really, really lucky at that point. It taught me some huge lessons about not lying, about being honest with myself, about bankroll management, about organization, all of these different things. But yeah, that's pretty humiliating to look back on and to tell people about, but got to be honest.
It's part of your path, right? It's part of, like you said, I mean, maybe that was for the best, or not about what happens, how you react, and you made a conscious choice. Do you think if you were to tell someone that sort of lives a lie or constantly is doing that, similar, maybe a different scale or level, just doesn't matter, that they're just kind of caught in this trap of like just constantly doing that, what and they may not have a chance to hit a tournament score or, you know, some kind of thing to get them out of that. How would you tell someone that they could shift and just change and say, make a decision, I'm going to stop? How do you do that?
That's a really, really good question. So I think that the first thing for me, being an ex-compulsive liar, was realizing rationally that almost no lie is plus EV. Almost no lie is going to be best for you in the long term. It does some stuff. It changes who you are. It changes how you act. It changes how people perceive you. And some people are so perceptive to liars that they can just sniff one out by just looking at them or hearing something that they say. And the negatives that come back from spreading lies come back to you in ways that you couldn't possibly imagine. So I'd say as soon as you understand that rationally, every single lie you have, especially to the people that are close to you, but even to strangers on the street, unless it's in maybe like self-defense, you know, if someone's like, have you got any money? And you're just like, yeah, I've got this 50 pounds, you throw it and there's, you know, you've got more and they might kill you for it, except whatever. Unless it's a very extreme scenario, you know, trying to hide nuclear codes or something, then it's every single time going to be in your best interest to tell the truth as best as you can. And as soon as you come to that conclusion rationally yourself, then what I did is, even though I was a compulsive liar, I would stop myself mid-conversation and be like, hey guys, this is really, really embarrassing. But the thing I said like 2 sentences ago, that was a complete lie. I'm actually, you know, not as successful as that, whatever, you know, and that happened many times. For me, that was the way that I got out of the circles. I pretty brutal forced my way out of it.
Interesting. Very interesting. I see we have John Duthie in the chat saying, always been a fan of Charlie. Frustrating to play against, but always challenging. Good job with the charity stuff. So it's nice to see John checking in. Hopefully get him on the podcast coming up. He's definitely a legend of the game. Been around.
Always a pleasure to play against John at the table.
Yeah, gentlemen, right? You guys you battled a fair amount.
Yeah, I remember, man, I remember a few hands we played against each other in a 25K. I think he owned Ben, and then I got him back and just like called him or something.
And when you say Ben got him, like Ben, so is that fair to say Ben is like Ben? And I think what Grips do you do some work with or did? Like, who is your core team of people you talk, bounce hands off of, you know, share stuff with, success and tribulations? Who do you kind of go to?
So quick shout out to Grips, because he was the only person whose content I really watched. I never got any coaching. I got like 1 session of coaching ever. And I never watched any of the training videos. I just taught myself. But his Bankroll challenge videos, which I think are still up on YouTube, taught me how to play successfully to the point where I could still beat 1-2. And that was the only content I was watching. So shout out to him. I wouldn't have had anywhere as good a career as I did without him. Ben and I worked our way up so I started kind of coaching him when he was at 10 NL, and now he's playing the super high roll, has had super loads of success, but he's turned very GTO recently, which is very good for him. GTO can be very powerfully used if in the right circumstances, but it does mean that when we're speaking hands, we're talking another language. But we're going to start connecting again on speaking hands. But apart from that, I don't really speak to anyone about poker.
You know, it's funny. I just was scrolling through. I think it was 2016, and I believe you might have cashed this too. But I remember I'm just looking at Ben Heath and looking kind of, he's had a ridiculous run in success, but I think we were in I think it was this one, yeah, a 25K, and I remember losing a hand to him, but it was like ace-3 of hearts to kings. But I remember you being on the rail there. This was I don't know if this was his breakout, but like maybe early on when he was playing the 25Ks, but you guys were, I just remember. What was that?
Where was that?
It was Bahamas. It was a Bahamas. I mean, it wasn't a huge score, but I think I'm just looking like it was early on.
I do remember that.
I remember vividly your tie-dye pants on and you were there railing him. And I was like a big, you know, there was these 25K PCAs were one of the better 25Ks. You know,
that was a huge one. Oh no, wait, I'm thinking of a different one. Okay, never mind. I don't remember that.
Actually, this is the one where Sean Winter.
Oh no, that is the one. I remember that one. Yeah, that he screwed over Timex.
Yeah, he got when he had half a stack. He his whole action, and then he took $1 million from Timex. I remember being at the cage and seeing that payout go down.
That was beautiful. Watching Timex just walk up and down super stressed. I love Timex, but watching him walk up and down super stressed after taking everyone's money for the last year is quite a beautiful thing to see.
Right. Like, yeah, those are big swings, right? Those kind of sweats can really make or break. But yeah, no, I just remember you guys being, this was kind of, I guess you had already been, you had sort of just gotten through or sort of breaking into the scene and the high roller scene at that level. But I know you and him are very close, and obviously, yeah, you guys have had a pretty storied career already. And Ben, how old is Ben? He's your age as well in that ballpark?
He's 28 as of 2 days ago.
28. Okay, so that's kind of, that's your crew, right? That's like your main, you would say though, that's sort of like your core of
yeah. I wouldn't say I have a poker crew anymore, but he was the only person I really spoke hands with.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm fascinated. I'm definitely going to be looking at the charity stuff and talk about a bit here on you've posted action on Stake Kings. Do you sell anything? Do you do directly to friends? Do you do any of these other sites? Like what type of ways do you promote? Like, is that something people can buy? Like if I want to sweat, obviously not a bankroll challenge, but like when you play a schedule, do you post any action anymore? Or do you just have people you deal with, or you do your own?
Yeah, I'm completely staked to the moment, but because I don't want to take the swings because of my charity. But that is a good point. I completely forgot Stake Kings existed. I've made quite a lot of people a lot of money, and I love selling on Stake Kings. I usually did it at zero markup, so I'll probably get back on that.
Come on, man. Listen, if you want to be in Twitch, you gotta give them a little taste. Give them a sell. That's at $1. Get 1,000 people, have a little action, and they live and die by the flips and the bad beats and the celebration. So you got it. Don't forget about that. I just got to give them a shout out. I love this site. Little promo shout out. All right, let's take some questions. I think we've covered a lot. It's very interesting. Again, I do feel we have a lot of similar overview, like kind of look and just how we approach the game and the energy type stuff. Like I'm a big
we're definitely both into the energy type stuff.
Yeah, we're both we're definitely in tune on that. So just to run through before we take the questions, Hendon Mob guys, check them out. Very illustrious career. Instagram, that's the best way. You said you have people posting for you, but you do take a look at the messages you want to get a hold of them. You have a Facebook page. I don't know. Are you active on there? Do you do?
Yeah. I'll read messages on there too.
Facebook, YouTube. This is where the highlights and also Bankroll Challenge in particular right now, which is hot, kind of you're on your way. You hit that kind of inflection point. I mean, it's a big deal, right? It's like, to get over a certain amount, it becomes much more feasible because you could be stuck at $50, $100, $200 range for a long time. So do you feel like you made a little bit of a breakthrough? Like this could kind of exponentially?
Yeah, it definitely helps. I realized I've just been getting, I was about to use a horrible word, but I've been getting destroyed by the rake in PokerStars Zoom. So actually, but the bankroll should be a lot bigger, and I haven't been even paying attention to rake back because I haven't been adding onto the bankroll. But yeah, I feel bad that I've been playing so much PokerStars Zoom, and other people have been playing it because I've been playing it. And then I finally just looked at the rake and I've, oh my God, that's ridiculous. That's actually just like stealing. And so yeah, I wouldn't recommend people play on PokerStars if they're in the microstakes.
And there is a good option though. Party Poker, man. Give a little love. John Duffy's in the chat. Like, throw us a bone, Charlie. What's going on? What do we need to do to get you over to? You said you're talking with someone though right now, right? So you're kind of
my heart goes to whomever has the lowest rake for the microstakes, because I would only ever affiliate or anything for people who I can safely say would be the best option. So I'm probably not the best person to choose for a sponsor, just because I speak about so many controversial topics that a lot of companies probably won't want that connected to them. So I'm not really looking for a sponsorship or anything.
All right, fair enough. That's pure. I respect that. All right, so again, Twitch. Give him a follow. There it is, Epiphany77. Do you have any upcoming? Do you have a schedule set? Are you a wake up and feel how you are going to go, or do you kind of like say I'm going to stream these days of the week right now? What's your COVID-19 Twitch schedule?
Yeah, fuck GTO. Just see how we feel on the day.
Just fire it up, do it live. All right, I like it. I respect that too. So and you have a website. Tell me a bit about your coaching, what that entails. Before we take questions, what can people expect if they were to go on your website and look to get the masterclass?
Yeah, thank you by the way for all the shout outs. That's very kind.
No worries. Yeah, man, it's good. People need to know what you got going on. That's what we're here for.
So the poker masterclass and the spiritual masterclass that's coming up are the two things I'm genuinely the most proud of by far for the content. My opinions are quite strong when it comes to poker content and poker education. I really think that the poker world has just got it completely wrong. I think that we've got this mass brainwashed idea of how to teach poker, and that's one of the biggest factors of why there are no new up and coming geniuses, because they're all learning from all of these different streams, and instead of learning how to think, or learning about the other parts of the game, that maybe the mental game, maybe the spiritual side, maybe keeping motivated, maybe meditating, stuff like that. They're just being taught, okay, here's a spot and here's what you do in that spot. Here's a spot, here's why you do that in that spot. And it's not structuring up a thought process. And what I do in the poker masterclass is I say, okay, here are some examples of things that people think that are just absolute nonsense. Bring it back to the basics. What is your opponent's range and how do you exploit that? You don't need to balance. You're playing 2-0. You're playing 25-0. You don't need to balance. Come on, get out. Like I can open different pre-flop sizes and nobody's going to notice for probably like 20,000 hands. So why are people balancing on 5-L against people that don't even know what balancing is? And it's so I have some pretty strong opinions, as you can tell, and I really believe in teaching people to completely get rid of the mess, streamline their thought process, bring it up from stage one. Here is a range, here's what you do to exploit it. Here is a range, here's what to do to exploit it. And I teach people how to go from 2 to 25 now in the first poker masterclass. And I've had people being like, oh my God, I was a losing player for years. I took the masterclass and now I've just started crushing it.
And it's so, okay, 10 hours, 10-hour masterclass. Very cool. I would like to check that out. I think that's something too, where I get caught. There's a lot of information out there, and it's it's always interesting to see different perspectives, right? Because there's a lot of the regimented, raise your edge, upswing, these other things that are like, which is good. It's good to have the information, poker code. There's these stuff, but I think it's nice when you get a different perspective or way of learning. It can invoke different emotion, different triggering, and even if you just get one or two things, it could be the difference in taking your game to a new level, maybe taking a different perspective. And I'm very curious on that. So I would like to check that out. I have not, and I will take a look at that. So let's take some questions. I don't know how you are on time, but we have a lot.
I got all day. I've got nothing to do today.
We'll scroll through and do some of these. This is a great question from Mary. What's your favorite thing about poker?
Apart from the fact that it's a spiritual journey, because we've already mentioned that, I'll try and think of something else. I think my second favorite thing is the fact that there's this coalescence between psychology and mathematics, or intuition and logic, or something like that. And it's something where art and science, for instance, it's something where those two worlds rarely get to meet. But when you're analyzing theory, and you have to let it be adjusted by your intuition, or let it be adjusted by psychology, or let it be adjusted by live tells and stuff like that. So for me, it's like the most beautiful game I've ever played. And I've played a lot of chess, and chess is nowhere near as complicated as poker. Poker is the most complicated game I've ever played by a long margin. And for me, that it's just this unexplored jungle where there's so many new layers to it that still haven't been explored. And I think that live tells is another one. I think there's some esoteric metaphysical underpinnings to poker, which I think a lot of people don't understand, energy stuff. And I still think that poker is going to be growing and evolving for decades to come.
Is that safe to say that even with solver scripts, this and that, Party Poker got rid of the HUDs and that, great, and it seems to be going well. People seem to be giving it good feedback. I think initially people are like, oh, it's going to be not right, or I don't like it, but really it seems to be well adopted. And almost now in Party, I just see when I play, I'm like, oh, that's normal, it's good. And for me, like you're saying, maybe there's a guy who's just great at knowing on the turn that I never bluff, or my whatever, or my rivers, so like he can crush me in that spot where it's like not really fair because I'm not using it or seeing what he's doing. I think that, so it's combating that, right? It's sort of like
it's exactly it.
So it's interesting. I just wanted to ask you about this because this is something I've been working on a bit with Andrew at Choker. What have you heard about Choker? Do you have any?
I have. I love chess and I love poker, but I've never played Choker. The game, I think it could be better.
Have you seen it? Have you played it?
I've seen one of my favorite chess streamers play it. And to be fair,
who's that?
Actually, two of them, Eric Rosen and Hikaru. I really like. I love Eric. I really love Eric, and Hikaru is pretty sick anyway. So I love watching them play. I think just because they aren't very good at poker, then it wasn't like the best to watch. Maybe Hikaru wasn't the one. I think I just watched Eric play it actually.
Well, yeah, if you're interested, let me know, because I am actually working with them on sort of what's the word, bridging the gap with poker, because
I would love that. If I could play Eric Rosen heads up in a choker match, that would be the dream.
Let me make a note here, just because I am going to connect you to the CEO of that, because I'm basically, so right now Bill Perkins he's going to be involved. He does a ton with chess, like charity stuff. Matt Staples likes as well. Oh yeah, Bill's like obsessed with chess. He puts on like big chess tournaments and puts up.
Really, I love chess. So I play more chess than I do poker at the moment.
Really? Well, I'm gonna connect you. I think it could be a great fit for that, because that's what kind of looking at poker players that play chess as well and are passionate about it. And it's interesting on how they do it, because with the betting element, like I could play, in theory, you could play a grandmaster and win, because it's the end game. So you're essentially you're drawing your pieces, and every draw you bet. So like you could go all in, and you could just, you could technically win. It would be an asterisk, but you could just make a grandmaster fold out or make a bad play, right? Like he might just say, oh, like my hand stinks, but you stink at chess, and I'm going to go to the streets. And then you're in there with a huge advantage, and it's kind of fun, right? It gives you, and it's only the end game, so it's not like you have to worry about opening moves and all that. It's just like
I don't have openings in chess is kind of beautiful. I've never learned the openings really at all.
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna message them for you and just connect you with them. So anyway, that's cool. That'll be fun. I think you'll like that. Awesome. What is the number one thing you attribute to your success? Asks Bot Lady. So you've started basically with most of us, where you started, put 50, 100, whatever deposit, and then sort of spun up. So, I think that's also important. I always mention, when you look at players like yourself or other people who have maybe have gone broke once, or, lost a role, like it's not like it's different than a businessman, and the risk and the age when you start in 19 years old with almost, you're not risking 100,000. You're risking, like, you're starting from literally nothing. So it's like, it's a big difference than you're putting someone into a game that is 30 or 40 or 50 and starts buying in for 10,000 or $500 a game, and they can lose a lot of money quickly. It's a bit different too, with the paradigm of how much you're risking and what different stage of your life is, right? So it's like, that's also important to be cognizant of who is getting involved in what they're doing, because it's a big difference for you and I, who started out 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 7 years ago, and risked very little to sort of blossom it, so just want to point that out as well, because it's not just like
yeah, so it's a really good point. And stuff like bankroll management and decisions like that, it's so personal. You can't have any rule for what's good. You just have to really feel like what are you capable of losing, and then also, like, are you capable of beating the stakes below is a huge one. So people often, when they have a lot of money, they just jump into 100 NL without much experience. Like, you're not going to win 100 NL without much experience. You're just not. Right. So yeah, it's that level of humility is needed to, even if you have loads of money, to go play the 2NL streets.
Yeah, it's very, very relative, and you got to remember that. You got to be, it's a lot more risk, and a lot more need a little more pay attention and think about what you're doing and what you're risking, and what stage of your life you're at. Are you single? Are you in college? Are you coming out of college? Are you have a family? Being
single is a huge one, man. Yeah, I'm so much better at poker when I'm single, or if the relationship's healthy. So at the moment, I'm running great, and everything's going well because got a good relationship.
That's beautiful. So, but in terms of attributing your success, what is your actual, like, if you could define it? Could you give me a couple things you think is why you've been so successful?
Yeah, so I think one, I was fortunate enough to have a very mathematical background, even though I'm almost known as like the anti-mathematical player. Like I was intending on doing a maths degree and going into quantum physics, theoretical physics kind of thing, or banking. So having that underpinning of rationality was very helpful. So some people, they think they need to learn all the maths. They need to learn, how often you're going to be flopping a flush. You need to learn pot odds, all these different things. Like, it's useful to know all that information. I came up with the flopping and flushing, because I heard you say it on one of your videos quite recently. It's useful information, but it's not really what's necessary to be a good poker player. What you need is good decision making, and that comes from rationality and logic, as opposed to just like crunching numbers. So having that and always being like a debater, always being a rational person was probably super duper helpful. Secondly, live tells. I think it's been I would say my domain of expertise. I don't like to compare about how good other people are in comparison to me, but I think I'm at least up there of the best at live tells, and it's something that I always recommend other people to look at. I don't tell people what the live tells I found are, because there are some that are pretty universal throughout all people, even the highest stakes players. If you're really, really attuned to like the micro expressions and things like that and understanding the nuances of them. But I would say to people that are starting to play, if you do play live when our Lord and Savior Corona does allow us outside again, please, then you can spend a lot of time just looking at people. And even if you're not in a hand, don't stare, obviously, because I sometimes have been told off for staring too much, looking for live tells, which is my bad. But do look for these patterns. And I would say it's the jungle that hasn't been explored yet. Like the best players in the world kind of, in my opinion, aren't very good at protecting from them or looking for them. Some are, but most of them, in my opinion, aren't.
Who are some other players that you could put in that list? I know Chance Corneth prides himself.
Chance is very, very good at live tells. He also likes other people to believe that he's even better at live tells.
Right.
I love Chance.
Is there other guys that you would put in that category that really like sort of focus, pay attention, and work on that?
One player that I'm super fascinated by is Bryn. He's a player that I don't understand. When I play against him, he does some stuff where I'm just like, that was stupid, man. That was so stupid. But you know what? I'm the exact same. I do some stuff and I'm just like, that was so stupid. And other people are like, that was so stupid. And I'm just like, yeah, it probably was. But when Bryn is in tune, I think that he is one of the best, if not the best poker player. I think his power when he's in tune with other people, he does some stuff that is just, I don't think the rest of the poker world understands it. And I don't think they understand why he's been so successful. So he's somebody that I'm very, very intrigued by. Igor's another person that I'm very impressed by. His understanding of the game mixed with his understanding of live tells and people has always been a pleasure to play against. Live tells. I think that's it. I think that's all the people I can think of.
That's a handful. I mean, that's, yeah. Which player is your Achilles heel, the one that you find it hard to beat or that you just never managed to overcome, whether it's skill or luck? Is there anyone that you just kind of like over the course of your career, you're like, man, he just knocks you out numerous times, or just for whatever reason, good or bad or lucky?
Yeah, if we can just get this trending on Twitter, hashtag fuck David Peters. No, he's got the better of me probably more than anyone else.
Bro, I gotta show you a hand. I could find the clip. I'll send it to you afterward, but it was so peculiar. And I'll just tell you very quickly because I want to know your thought, and I'll send it to you because maybe I'm missing something. It was a 2K PKO Power Fest maybe 3 days ago. There's six players left or 7 left, and he has 37,000 chips, let's say. Okay. And the blinds are 9K, 18K. He's on the cutoff. He min raises. So he has 1,000. He has 1,800 chips behind, and he has a $2,800 bounty. Okay. I have like 340,000. I'm in like 5th or 4th or something. And this guy Pavul is on my left, and he is in the small blind. I'm on the button. I go all in, right? Because it's for a bounty. And I mean, I have ace king. I have the nuts, right? Whatever. I love my hand. I'm all in. I say out loud, Pavul's tanking. I go, I think he has like ace 7. Okay. Like that was in my head. He has ace 7.
It's crazy how some people can do that, man.
I say it. He goes all in, and the big blind is Anatoly Filatov, who has around my chips, folds. David Peters tanks down, and it's like $1,000 pay jump. Okay, this David Peters, the guy's playing $1 million buy-in tournaments. He's got, if he's getting a zillion to 1, it's like 1,000 pay jump, but he's basically forfeiting the tournament. I thought maybe he timed out or misclicked, and then I'm like, no, it's David effing Peters. Like the guy knows what he's doing. I was like, how can he fold for $1,000 pay jump, leaving himself with 1,000 chip at 18,000 ante or big blind there? Of course, I win.
I'm gonna go on a limb and say that he disconnected or not disconnected, but something happened that he couldn't click the call button. Was he straight back in when he sat out? Did he sit out for a while, or did
he was in the next hand. I'm telling you, I got to send it to you. It had to be. There's no way. Because, again, it was a 1,000-pay jump, and it was like he had 37K. I'm all in. Another guy's all in. There's that Annie, and then there's the small blind, big blind. So it's like it was literally like a 1K pay jump.
Yeah, you have to show me it, but that sounds dubious.
Can't be right. I wanted to ask him as well. Actually, I'm going to message him. But that's what I'm saying. Like, he did end up pay jumping, I think, maybe. But anyway, it just like it couldn't be right. That's what I was thinking. Like, you mentioned that name, and I'm just like, but it's him. It makes you think. Like, maybe
he might have just brain farted. So I've seen David do some pretty funny, stupid stuff before as well. He's, by the way, one of the nicest people outside of poker. I spent some time with him at a party once, and he was so lovely. He's
a great guy. He is a great guy. Okay, so but he just seems to just kind of hold over you, or just get you and
you know what it is. I find it really hard to get live reads on him. There are very few people that I find it difficult to get live reads on, but David Peters, I've had it a few times. I've had a few reads a few times, but most of the time I've struggled with it.
Do you believe? All right, people, and especially like fishy cash games or players, like I noticed this more than anything, where guys' A games are pretty solid. Like, okay, like even a guy who's not.
Sorry, I just want to interrupt that, that sounded really like douchey in playing it back in my head. It's also because he's also extraordinarily good at poker. That's also it.
Oh, no, yeah, for sure. I think that goes.
That's a given, but just in case people thought that wasn't
I have 3 or 4 guys that I could name that I just feel like I've never won a pot, or the sickest runouts, or they're obviously the greatest players, but they're also just like, I just feel like, it's like, yeah. I just don't get it. Like, I just can't win a flip, or like I hit a, whatever. So yeah, but that everyone's kind of got, I guess, a nemesis or someone that sort of just seems to do that. I was gonna say about like A games. Do you think? Is it like, let's just take Brinkin or David Peters, maybe not the best examples because they're such consummate professionals, but someone that you play with regularly, is it fair that you'll be able to get in tune to their energy on a day? Like, you see a couple hands or how they're playing, and maybe it's like they're just not there. They're not focused. They're shoving. You see some showdowns, and you're like, oh man, that was like a bit aggressive or tilting. Are you able to like hone in on that and maybe make an adjustment in game to someone? Because I think obviously everyone's A game at that level is very good, but people definitely don't always play their A game. There's B games, C games, tilt games. I
think you're right. As much as it's easy to see these people as just like super gods, like all the best players in the world, the high rollers, it's important to remember they're still human. Some people have days where there'll be a close decision, and it might be a shove, but they'll convince themselves that it's not. Or they'll convince themselves to make a tight fold. They'll convince themselves that someone else has it just because they're in like a passive mood that day, or because they woke up and they didn't have their morning coffee early enough, and that just like spiral. Like, there's so many little things that could happen to someone's energy that you can be attuned to picking up on. Obviously, it's not a science, so you can get it wrong a lot of the time. They can try and give off a different energy, or maybe just make a bad read. But yeah, I think that there's no human alive that plays poker that isn't readable. It's not like we're getting like the Dalai Lama or some enlightened being to come in and be in their Zen state in front of us. It's like we're all humans, all trying to work stuff out, and everyone makes mistakes, and everyone gives off tells, and yeah, we're all just trying our best to not do it.
For sure. Someone asked, when did you decide to grow your hair? Because you have had short hair. I've seen it, but in the past even 5 years or so, I think I remember. But mostly of long hair. Was there ever a decision, or how did you like go from growing it out?
Yeah, I had long hair a lot as a kid, but it was like in a fringe, and that was actually, it turns out, because I was so insecure about my face, because I was called such an ugly kid so often when I was bullied, that I just covered my face up. I was like, no one's ever going to see me, and it's like always in front of my face. So I cut it short when I realized that was a thing, and it's like, hey, start to love my face, start to love myself a bit more. And then it was actually at a peyote ceremony where I was like, actually, I think there's something to this long hair business, where I saw a Native American shaman and his family, and they were, in all honesty, like the pinnacle of masculinity. And I'd never seen masculinity so beautiful, so soft, but so strong, so connected with nature, so connected with each other. Right. And they had long hair, the guys did, or at least one of them in particular did. And I think that there's something intrinsically powerful about energy coming from hair, but I don't think modern science has any idea, and I don't think I could be able to put that into words.
I like how you say you go, and when you meditate, you put your feet on the ground, because I've heard this before about touching earth and grounding. And I do believe makes a ton of sense, right? It just makes
evolutionarily it does. Yeah, we're not meant to be living on concrete.
Right. So it's sort of I like that. I like that thing you mentioned as well, and I've heard people say that, and I try to do that as much as you can. Do you prefer playing online or live?
Live, love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Love talking to people, love getting tells, love joking with people. You can get reads on who wants to talk and who doesn't. Yeah, there's just so many new things that come when you're playing live. Online is great, but at the moment when I'm grinding by myself, especially, it's not as fun as it used to be.
And what percentage of when you're playing now online are you on Twitch? Like, when you're playing, are there times where you're like, all right, this is playing super high stakes stuff, I'm just Matrix, no chat, and then how do you balance between streaming when you're like, all right, you're playing online, how much of it are you streaming, how much of it are you just not streaming?
Yeah, it's probably like 50-50 at the moment, maybe like 60-40 not streaming. The 500 Zoom stuff I'm recording, but I'm not streaming because I feel like I get too distracted and I'm really in the zone when I'm playing Zoom.
Yeah, that's too. That like, because it's just you're in every hand every second. You can't be following a chat doing.
Yeah, exactly. And Sundays, because I don't want to give away my poker party poker screen name, then I'm not streaming there either.
Okay, makes sense. Someone, what was the most difficult tournament you've played, and why? Do you have one that does? I mean, it just kind of all blend together. Was there ever one that was just such a grind? Maybe you were sick, or you had to come back from a tough beat and be short. Like, anyone that really was rewarding or challenging that stands out?
When you phrase a question like that, then the Scoop main event was by far. Day 3, I went in as the shortest stack on the final table. I short stacked the whole way, and then about an hour before we're about to start, about a third of Mexico gets a power cut, and Connor Drynen's in like the similar area to me in Playa del Carmen, and he's messaging us just being like, I'm hot footing it over to a different city, and he's on the final table as well. And about half an hour, it was actually, I think that happened about 3 hours before the final table, and about half an hour before the final table started, the power came on in parts of the city. I don't understand what was going on. Our flat still didn't have internet, so we had to then take hostage in a cafe. Halfway through the final table, we're now crushing. We're like 1 of 5. The internet of the cafe goes out. And that because we told them we're playing poker, we didn't tell them how high stakes because it's Mexico. They're just like, yeah, we'll get to it in a second. And we're like, oh, I'm in a previous decision. Fuck.
Wow.
I grabbed my laptop and I'm like, Ben, get the bill, please. So I leg it down in my pajamas down the streets of Playa del Carmen with my mouse banging against my leg, going into cafe. It's like, do you have internet? They're like, no. Do you have internet? I finally find a Starbucks and I'm just like, do you have internet? Yes, no password, set up. Like, people look at me just like, what the hell is this kid doing? And yeah, managed to get back just in time for that river decision. It was a fold anyway, but
well,
and then
you got in that actual hand, you got out of there and went to different places, like you got able to get on and make that decision.
Yeah, I got that extra disconnect time back, which was nice.
Wow. So that is crazy. So that was that pivotal of a hand as well. Like, you won that hand, or you got the.
No, it was a fold. It wasn't a huge pot or anything, but I mean, I could have just lost internet for the whole thing.
The rest of the thing, yeah, easily. You basically just described like the first year of my Twitch in one moment. Like, if you knew the tour, like the places like in New Zealand or Brazil, like my wife's small town, where if you saw the escapades I was on to go to places, I at one point I was basically in like a local Comcast of like a small Brazil in an office. Their dad knew, like, playing in from their office on a Sunday in like a random, like a little Comcast of some sorts. Like the stories, the places, the tilt I've had, that the low quality streaming of internet, and also it's like you go to a place and you're like, oh, I need 5 upload, download, or whatever. They're like, yeah, we got that, but it's not steady. You get there and it's just like, yeah, their peak at 1 second is 5, but it's really like 0.16. You set up a stream, you take out your laptop, you do all this stuff, and it's just like, it's just been so many, so much, it's not easy to travel and do the streaming stuff.
But looking back, even though it's stressful at the time, I bet you wouldn't change it for anything.
I would change a little, but yeah, not
really,
just a bit. I mean, it's like there's so many frustrating, things. But to be fair, I can't tell you, and again, how much I do respect that you have such a following and you've done so much Twitch stuff, because it is a grind. Assuming you even have the best equipment and setup and internet and whatever, it is. I can't tell you. I literally have a dozen well-known poker players that have contacted me and said, hey, can I have your playbook on Twitch? I send them all the equipment, all the things. Here's the process. You need to get here, blah, blah, blah. Maybe if like a quarter of them do a few streams and that's it. And then the rest never even start. But it's a grind. Right. It's not easy to turn up, go live, have 10 viewers, 5 viewers on, sit there, not know what you're doing, not have nice overlay, not have a nice setup, and just like it's not for everyone. That's, I'll say that, you know. So it's it is a
big respect to the streamers that are grinding out there. I've been fortunate enough to not have to stream all the time to make a living, so I've been able to just take time off when I feel like it. But I know some people do it all the time, and it's so tough. Like, I know it sounds silly when there are like builders out there and miners, but obviously it's a different type of tough.
Yeah, it's different. And I mean, honestly, that I think is one of the turning points in poker for online was when Party decided to take on a Twitch team. It was nice because it was basically only one show in town with stars, you know, and obviously Tonka with 888, and there's some other streamers that don't like, you know, they're just doing it and they're not doing it necessarily to be sponsored, but Party kind of took on a team. And then, you know, there's something to sort of aspire to, because I see there's so many talented players and people now, and whether or not they get a deal or not, it's nice because they can build their own affiliate links. They can promote your coaching program, choose a coaching program. They can generate some extra revenue, and also sort of that you can build something. It's kind of fun to build your own situation. So I think that is cool to see the poker listing grow. And, you know, there's now a lot of 100, 200 viewer streams that are sort of gaining steam and people come into. So I think there's
a lot of new streamers that I've noticed over the last few weeks in quarantine times.
Yes, no, there's a ton. You could start naming. There's a lot of, you know, well-known or people within the poker community that have been around that are doing that. Do you have a crazy trip story? I would imagine maybe the I don't want to what's the word, lead you, but the one where you won the Sunday Million or chopped it and won over 200K and then took your mates to Amsterdam. Would that be up there?
I thought, are you sure they don't mean psychedelic?
It could mean both. We could do any.
I definitely have both. So crazy trip stories in holiday. The Amsterdam one was definitely up there. When I met Hannah, that was pretty mental. They're such long stories, I probably won't go into them. Psychedelic trip stories, many. I would say that even though I was a big proponent of psychedelics for quite a long time, I spoke very publicly about them on lots of different podcasts and stuff. I'm now in the mindset I'm never taking psychedelics, and I think there are a lot of hidden dangers that people don't know about. And so if that question was about psychedelic trips, my advice is, unless you're with somebody that's an absolute expert, and I don't just mean somebody who, you know, sits in drum circles and with, you know, things on their wrist and says that they're a shaman. I mean somebody that's their culture is around psychedelics, then psychedelics can be extraordinarily dangerous.
Do you have any thoughts on ayahuasca? Have you ever been, and do you know much about that?
Oh yeah, ayahuasca kicked my ass, man. She's a bitch sometimes. No, yeah, she's ayahuasca. I say she because there's a lot of like feminine energy around it, but it was my first deep dive into the esoteric realms. So I was a very skeptical person. I was very rationalist, very materialist, atheist, all of these different things, nihilist. And I needed scientific evidence in a lab to believe something. And then ayahuasca just kicked my ass, and she was like, well, here's loads of evidence to suggest that you're wrong about all of this stuff. And by the way, also stop cheating on your girlfriend, stop lying, and enjoy the next year of your depression whilst you learn your lesson. So
wow.
Yeah, it was a cool experience.
So you're okay. So you have you've experienced.
What about you, by the way? Have you tried ayahuasca or peyote or anything?
I have not. I'm very aware of it. I have a lot of close friends that have done it either once or multiple times. I think it makes sense. I'd be interested in trying it, but I have not done it. And I've heard pretty good feedback overall about it. And I think it's important with the shaman, you know, doing it the right way. It's from the earth, how you're respecting it. You're doing it for the right reasons, and you're doing it in a controlled, strong environment. It's, you know, talking about drugs and stuff, it's always tricky, right? Because it's very,
you got to give a lot of disclaimers.
Yes, you got to, you know, again, I'm not recommending it, or I haven't even done it, but I'd be open to doing it. And I think,
yeah, I would also say that even if you do it with a shaman, the majority of shamans that you'll find that call themselves shamans probably aren't what I would say are up to scratch for doing the job. There are people out there that have good intentions, won't just be trying to take your money, but there's also a lot of people that will just be trying to scam you.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's fair in almost anything, right? Like there's anytime that, like we're saying in money, anytime there's money or a market, like there's you got to be careful because there's people have ulterior motives and not necessarily looking out for your well-being or for you to benefit. You know, it's a tricky thing. So interesting. That sounds like you had a good, yeah. I get it. I hear what you're saying, and you've experimented in the psychedelic world, but you're saying you're not a proponent, or you wouldn't recommend. You're just got to be very, very careful and understand what you're diving into.
Yeah, some dangerous stuff out there, and it's kind of like babies playing with fire, with people in the Western world playing with psychedelics, in my opinion. But,
yep. Someone asked, did you play sports? We already covered that. You said squash. What do you think about the postponed WSOP? Do you think that it might go online is that what would you think if Party Poker or Stars or one of these major sites just announced we're doing the exact same schedule online, WSOP mimicking it? Do you think that would make sense? Would that interest you? What do you think?
Yeah, I'd play the hell out of that if it got the same people turning up, which I'm not sure it would. Yeah, I don't have too many opinions on it. It sounds like it probably will happen, yeah, I'd probably play a bunch of the tournaments because WSP have such good structures.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, for a Twitch perspective, streaming a bracelet that would be pretty special, right? Playing like
that would be amazing. Actually, that's such a good point. I'd probably stream a bunch of that.
10K or whatever. Yeah, it'd be very, very cool. Yeah. So okay, very interesting. Yeah, we'll see what happens there. We'll take let's see more, man. A lot of questions. At what age do you know poker? We talked about that. Screen name on Party.
Yeah,
that's you're keeping that secret. Micro stakes challenge. So you're at 600 to the 10K. Is that correct?
6 something. Yeah.
6 something. Did you ever aha moment in your life, where you just you shifted, you woke up, you looked up, and you said, you know what, I'm making some sort of changes? It sounds like you did say about the line and just sort of shifting that, but was that your aha moment, or do you have other ones that stand out?
Yeah, there's been a lot of aha moments, often through psychedelics, although obviously still don't recommend people do them. But yeah, going from somebody who thought that it was in my best interest to do everything that was good for me short term, to somebody that realized, or at least I feel like I've realized, that the best way to be selfish is to be selfless. And the best thing you can do to yourself, if you're in a position where you're not having to struggle to survive, is to give. And that seems to be the most fulfilling life that one can create for oneself.
Okay. Very, very cool. Tell a funny story about a live event. Do you have a funny live event story?
Probably. It's the top of my head.
We can revisit it. We can revisit. There's plenty. Just have that background. You played with Kevin Hart, one of the most fun people on this earth. This person says, was it fun to talk to him? Did you engage in some fun banter? And was that a cool experience or whatever? Just another player.
So this goes to show how ignorant I am to pop culture. When I first played against Kevin Hart, it was in 100K. I had no idea who he was. Absolutely never heard of him before. And I don't think I've ever seen any of his films either. And he's obviously probably the most famous person I've ever played with by far. But when I met him, his energy was so vibrant, and people were acting like he was very famous. So it's like, obviously he's someone. But he was always funny. That was one thing about him, that it never stopped, and that annoyed quite a few people. But he also had this really good ability to put on the brakes when he needed to put on the brakes. One thing, he did need his ego stroked a bit about how good he was at poker. And I think a few people were stroking his ego in that way. But apart that was when he was very drunk, and I think his egos come out when you're drunk. But yeah, he was an absolute delight of a human being.
Right. Yeah. I mean, listen, if you're in the 100Ks, it's refreshing when you get someone is not a wizard, right? Like you see in there, and they're mixing it up. They're maybe lightening the mood, and that maybe not everyone maybe appreciates that, but I think overall anyone would sign in those fields to have Kevin, who's not obviously he's not a consummate professional in poker.
What's your opinion on the professionals that sit there and don't speak, and just they're in their headphones, and they're sitting in their hoodies and not communicating with other people?
I don't like it. I mean, I'll say this. I asked Matt Savage this question because he was on the podcast, and he's sort of considered the TDA main, one of the few that sort of makes all the rules or gets to govern the bodies. And there's a misconception, I think, and I give this example, I bring it up about the UK in particular, when I played at Dusk Till Dawn with William Kassouf, nonetheless, so a pretty big extreme of a character, but he's in every hand. I got ace king, you got to fold, you have pocket kings. I know, like, saying this to the extreme, and it's just totally allowed. But whereas the US and WPTs, WSOP events, it's like, if I say, Charlie, like, man, I think you got a good hand here, like, you can't do that. You can't talk about it. Like, that's what the dealers
I really don't like that.
do. And I asked Matt, what is the rule? Like, what's going on? He said that's not the case, that you are allowed to do that. You can't maybe say I have ace king, or even there was something else where I was surprised on what you could do based on the rules. But I feel like the dealers, the institutions, and the series are trained to basically tell the dealers, do not allow anything but the weather. And that gives off a bit of a weird energy too, even for myself.
Yeah, I agree. Going to WSOP is such a shame, where everyone wants to talk because they're American, and then you can't. And it's like, well,
yeah, and it's not right. And there's something wrong with this. But at the same thing, I think it's an interesting analogy to like COVID-19. If you tell people you can go outside, stay 10 feet apart,
that's a good point.
It's like, it's almost like a blanket statement to just avoid conflict and confusion, because there's too much interpretation and fine line. It's basically, I think that's the reason why that's happening. So I think that there's so sort of tangenting on your question, but I believe there's sort of a problem with this, and there needs to be a readdressing, a reemergence of this type of people being able. And I think Jamie Gold, it kind of happened around that time, right? Where it was like
Jamie Gold, Phil Hermie, Standing the Ground, all of those people, they made poker such a pleasure to watch. And now I think that poker has become less of a spectator sport, because all the best players in the world, it's fair enough. Like, poker has become one of those things where if you want to be really good, you probably have to be really good at maths, or at least you have to have that kind of mind where mathematical decision making is, in one of your skill sets. And often people that are good at maths, they're not also then extraordinarily articulate or flamboyant or eccentric or any of those things. They can be, but the tendency is not. And I think that's why a lot of the top players, they're pretty quiet, and I think it's pretty bad for the game. But at the same time, you can't really prod someone with a poker and just make them sing.
Yes, absolutely. So I think, to answer your question, I think it is a bit of a problem. Time, I guess the shot clocks, big blind ante, those type of things speed up the game and also help, but it's tricky, right? It's tricky because you're talking about big money, and it's a fine line.
Yeah, you can't like talk in the pod, idiot. It's 200K.
Yeah, and I think though, like the Triton events in particular, you obviously had your 1.6 million score. That was fun to do those events. That kind of vibe with Paul Foy, Richard Young, leading that charge, and the type of play. Like, it's also, sometimes it depends on the mix of the players. Like, it's like if guys know each other well and feel comfortable, they'll joke or talk, and it's like the guys losing big flips or big pots or getting knocked out or cripple in the hand and getting very short. It's like there's a fine line between like joking or talking and saying like, hey, and it's another's like, all right, this guy maybe just it could really be upset. So it's like it depends on a bit of a concoction on what the energy is and who knows each other and how the tables mesh, and certain guys just don't mesh maybe with anybody or just don't want to, and then there's certain guys that will talk if it allows it to. So I've
definitely grinded quite a few people's gears in the high stakes community. There's quite a few people that I think on my biggest fans because of how much I talk at the table. So I can see it from their point of view, where they're just like, oh, I just want to concentrate, it's big money, etc. But yeah, it's tough when you get a lot of very talkative people with not very talkative people in the same space. How are you at the table?
I like to talk. I do. I think my game is better suited to talk. I like to chat, to have a good time, and just sort of. I think it always ends up being better, just like in general. I think the overall, when I look back at a day, whether it goes well or not, it's like, yeah, that was fun, or I got to meet someone new, or learn a story or hear some kind of interesting anecdote. So I like to talk. I'd say I'm pretty talkative in general. I like to play. What's that?
We should play.
Yeah.
Come over to the UK.
Yeah, we got to get some. Who knows? Who knows when the next? I don't know what the line is on the live events, but I mean, I'm thinking like November. Bahamas is like what I think is safe, but it's hard to say. It really is.
I'm going earlier. I'm predicting it's going to be earlier.
It could be earlier for sure. No. What do you think? Speaking of predictions, what about your bankroll challenge? Do you have an over under? What's the line when you think you might finish that based on volume and just what you think from getting to 600 now to 10,000?
It would be nice to finish it before June, which is when my charity is going to launch. Otherwise, I'll have to put in less volume because there'll just be so much stuff I have to do. So I might try and aim for maybe like June 6th or something like that. Try and finish it by then.
Okay, and that's a good over under. Bankroll downswing. You mentioned you went broke basically. Did you play cash or MTT to run it back up?
MTTs. Yeah, it's all just high rollers. And I did play some live cash. I was fortunate enough to be also invited to some private games. Only one of them turned out to be a scam, which was nice. And yeah, I did play a bunch of cash when I was grinding up, but in the big upswing, that was pretty much all MTTs.
Very cool. Favorite live poker venue?
Trident, actually. Yeah, that was my number one. Other than that, I really liked Aussie Millions in Melbourne, just because the city of Melbourne is just so beautiful. And Vegas is up there as well. I love Vegas.
Melbourne's one of my favorites also. I actually have had my worst runs by far. I don't have a Hendon Mob flag in Australia, and I've been several times. It's pretty crazy and upsetting in itself, but it is a phenomenal city and a great place. Favorite venue? Okay, have you been to Montreal? Have you ever been to Playground Poker or Montreal? Oh man, Montreal is it's my favorite city actually. I would put that on your list to check out.
Yeah, I'd love to. Canadians all seem lovely. So
it's not anything negative to say over there. Charlie, you're my poker idol. I want to ask you how old you were when you really thought that poker could be a big thing for you in your future.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you. What's the person's name?
This is from Monkas, Cornick. I don't know, Cornick it looks like.
Fair enough. Yeah, well, thank you, Cornick. And I would say what was the question? When I first decided poker was a big thing for me? Anyway, it was something like that. I first realized I think.
When did you think it could be a viable like career or option? That was a question.
Yeah, when I started beating about 50 NL or maybe 100 NL, I remember there was a time when I was living with my grandma, and I'd come out and speak to her or speak to my mum that was there sometimes and be like, I just won 1K in a day. And then I'll come out the next day and be like, I just won 1K again. This is crazy. And for them, the money is just like insane. Like, so it's crazy amounts of money. So I think around then it started when I saw other people's human reactions instead of just like was on a screen. That's when it kind of clicked for me. But yeah, I had dreams as soon as I started playing. As soon as I saw that money could go up, I was like, this could be a thing.
Right. Yeah. It does happen quickly, right? It becomes like you're playing a video game or a board game, and then all of a sudden you're playing for real money, and then pretty quickly the wheels start turning, right? And you're like, well, this is interesting. This could be something. A lot of backing, chess. It's like you just know the industry. You kind of look at it, do a little research, and you realize, well, it's not really a career necessarily. Or it's harder to do that maybe. So
it's crazy looking back. Like we could have easily just got addicted to RuneScape. You know, we could just be grinding PKing in the wildy right now and not have much money and not have much security in our lives, but we happen to stumble across poker. It's so lucky.
It is crazy. Like I do think about that sometimes. I mean, it's like the tipping point, or you read these books, Gladwell, about right place, right time, or Sliding Doors, the movie, and these type of things, like how a little shift or a little difference or a blip can sort of take your career. Butterfly Effect, that movie as well. That concept, very, very interesting. Let's see. Yeah. Did you ever think that in this career, poker isn't for me? And if you did, how did you deal with it? Was there a shift when you were close to broke, or you did go broke, or before and on your way? Was there a point where you said, this was great, I learned a lot, I had fun, and I'm moving on?
Yeah. I think when that stuff happened with Doug, and I was also having quite a few other negative interactions with the poker community. I started getting a lot of anxiety when I was playing poker, and I was like, I think I might just be done. But anxiety, in my opinion, is just there to let you know. It's your body's way of letting you know that there's some trauma waiting to be released. Not always, that it might be telling you it's a bad situation. But I think in that situation, I needed to release some trauma. So I did some meditations to release the trauma, and then back on track.
Very, very interesting. Someone asked about the Doug Polk situation. We already did cover it. So you guys can scroll back in there. Do you still keep in touch with Grips? You said he was one of the early ones. You kind of looked at his content, his material. Him, Ben Heath, two of the people you sort of engage with or been part of your circle, triangle, or however else maybe is in there as well. Your network. How do you keep up with him? Have you talked to him much? What's he doing, by the way? Just because I know he does a lot of poker stuff, or he has. I haven't been in touch with him.
Yeah, Grips is streaming, so he's still doing his YouTube, still doing his Twitch. He's a very entertaining person, so I would go check him out. I keep in contact with him pretty regularly. Yeah, I would also shout out. I do actually have a group of people I speak poker with, which it's more of like a coaching thing, but they're called the Charmanders, and it's like a Facebook group we have. And my actual one of my best friends, she's called Helena McConnell. Okay. We met when we were 17, and I started coaching her about a year and a half ago, maybe a year ago. I'm not completely sure.
What was the name of the group you said?
The Charmanders. It's a private message group.
Cool.
Shout out to them. Yeah. And yeah, Helena's gone from 2-0 up to now she's beating 100 Zoom, which is very impressive for the amount of time. And her graph is just pretty insane.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff you seem, that's the things that you can look back on wins and trophies, but meaning someone who you care about and watch them sort of succeed and help them in that path. That's it's got to be very rewarding. I can tell that's very important, and you seem to really embrace that. What do you like to do besides poker? What are some things you really enjoy doing if you're not playing poker?
Yeah, there's a lot. So chess is a big one at the moment. Politics is one. Charities is a lot. I sing opera, but also sing other things. I meditate a lot. I do different exercises, spend time with my cat. I cook, I read, I watch podcasts. I get into lots of debates. I really enjoy that kind of stuff. There's probably a bunch more stuff. I have a lot of interests and a lot of like metaphysical things. I try not to speak about too much because the more skeptically minded people think you're mental.
Yeah, it can go down a rabbit hole for sure. Yeah. No, okay. Yeah, it's a lot. You got a lot of hobbies, so you keep busy. That's for sure. You're not sitting around twiddling your thumbs. You got full activity.
I still got time to watch some poker YouTube every now and again.
Very nice. Someone asked, where did you find your gorgeous girlfriend, Charlie?
Gorgeous girlfriend. Thank you. She was, man, it's such a long story. So you could get the long version if you want. I'll give you the short version if you want.
Too short because we have 100 questions. So I do want to, yeah.
Yeah. So we met online. We started out just friends, even though we were like falling in love just from day one. She was in an abusive relationship. She ended up managing to leave the person, and I flew from Vegas to Florida to meet her, and then we started living together. And we've had a very rocky relationship, but it has been it's been the experience of my life by far.
Very interesting. That's just one of the dating apps, one of the places to meet.
Long story.
Okay, let's listen, this is a podcast. This isn't a you can answer any go into much details you want, but that's an interesting story. That's like, again, it's kind of crazy, right? I mean, you could say that about almost anyone, how they meet, right? Burning Man or on a dating app or walking in a cafe. It's just kind of like crazy. You think about like meeting someone and how that shapes and how your life's different being in a relationship or not, and where you meet someone and at what point in your life you meet someone as well. When you're, is it the right time and just all of it. It's just interesting.
Can I ask you a question actually? When you met your now wife, did you feel like you had already met her before? Did you feel familiar with her already? Did it feel like so comfortable instantly, or was it getting to know her and it was new and exciting?
Yeah, no, well, I'll say this. When I met her, I did tell I said to my friends or people I was at Burning Man, I said I was going to marry her right away, like that day.
Dude, you called it.
I'll tell you an interesting story about it as well. This is true. I, like a kind of a fish, I got her. I did not get her. I just had her name. I didn't have any information about her. She's from Brazil. And I told her our coordinates of the camp. So I said, we're at 915D and we have a barbecue at noon. It was 7 a.m. And this is 70,000 people in a desert. There's no, it's just like it's a grid, like a clock, and you just kind of whatever. I said, we're having a barbecue at this Camp Epic. And then I went off and went to this other burn, this thing, and was like back. And then I hadn't gone to sleep. I came back, and at noon I came back, and there was 2 Brits on the barbecue, Joel, and I'm blanking on the other name. But I got back to camp, and I was getting ready to maybe have a burger and just crash into bed. And they're on the grill, and they say, "Man, they're like, there's someone looking for you. You better go check that out." And so I went over and sat, and she was with the guy, and I was like, "Fuck," I was like, "Man, she just wanted a burger, like whatever, right?" So I was like, "That sucks, but whatever." So I go start talking, and then it was just a friend of hers from camp, and then he left, and then I was in a camp with like 120 poker players, just vultures. So I took her out of the camp. We were holding hands, riding on a bicycle. I took her to get a coffee at this other place, and then that was it. So yeah, but it was
so beautiful, man.
Yeah, it was a crazy, one of those wild. And I was single for like 8 years, not in a serious relationship, and I was just sort of like, I want to get married around 35, maybe have kids, and next thing I knew, I was in I just bought a place in Vegas, like a bachelor pad, essentially, like in my mind at Panorama Towers. I was like, my friends have places there. This is going to be great and whatever. And then next thing you know, I was just like basically married from that, like right then on. But you can't really plan, right? You don't know like when you're going to meet someone that you want to just take it to the next level or what stage.
When you meet the person that's the one, everything is just so instant. Like everything changes. Your plans, once you start dating them, your plans change. You're like, well, okay, my life is just different now. There's no going back.
Absolutely. It's true. It's just how it goes. Someone's asking, how do you study poker? And let me premise this also, because I don't know if we can talk about this yet or how involved you are, but there's a program that I was very impressed with that I've been doing some stuff with now and going to be working with them. The initials are CD. You know what I'm talking about? I've seen you.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I think they actually did put out some content or release something.
They're live now, but
maybe it's soft launch of it. We don't have to go into
it. I wouldn't mention the name, just I'll ask him afterwards. But yeah, I'm with them.
Yeah. Okay. Me too. So I actually got invested some and got involved, and I really am impressed with that. How do you think that? It's kind of weird to talk like in the secretive here, but that type of program, like someone's asking about studying, that's why I bring it up. Do you feel like this type of way of engaging, and do you think this could actually? It's the best thing I've seen. I think it's just really interesting way of doing it. But
so we're building up pretty good hype for CD. But what I think is that this type of program could completely change the way that we educate each other with poker. I think that the poker world is so new that we just have no idea how education is meant to happen. I think it's it's one of those things where people who are very good at poker, I don't think they know why they're very good at poker. I'm sure they have insights and very, very good insights into certain parts of it, but I don't think they understand quite the root of their intuition and where that came from. And I think it came from just grinding online, having a specific brain type, and then speaking hands with their friends and playing and getting an intuition for all of these different spots. And this CD, this new thing that's coming out, big hype up to it, is, in my opinion, gonna be a game changer for how people can go over certain spots again and again and again and again, and watch maybe the best players in the world go over those certain spots again and again and again and again. And interestingly enough, when he reached out to me, I was already, I'm starting a business after my charity launches, and part of it was going to be integrating a new poker software thing, and it was almost exactly what he had done, but he had got it like 10 times more detailed and better than I was going to do it. So right. I was sold from day one when he told me about it.
Actually, I was shooting him a message just because I actually should know this, but I do believe it's like kind of soft launch or just sort of.
It has soft launched. I have an affiliate code, so I assume that it's.
Yeah, me too. I think it's fine, but anyway, to talk about the study and that to me, like that type of way of learning though, where you're basically getting to watch others, and then even maybe engage like how you would play in a spot versus a guy. I mean, to me, I can't think of a better way to learn than a nice visual way. Like, let's say you upload a tournament of you winning the Sunday Million or the Scoop or whatever, and then like going through, because I think people get confused or misconception about poker. Because like, look, man, like all the highlights, and you want to watch my Instagram or your Instagram, like beating kings to ace king, jacks to tens, whatever, right? Winning flips, coolering, holding, like these things, that's not really poker. People can play those spots, and those spots play themselves. The blind on blind, stack size differentiate, limping here, check raising here, calling.
Yeah. Do you open 10-9 suited in this spot? Do you call a 3-bet with Jack 10 suited in this spot? It's so many nuances that people don't see in the highlights.
Right. So like that, to be able to like take, if everyone could have access, like I think that's invaluable. I would pay to see Brinkini, to see you, to see Ben CB, to watch them actually like go through a tournament, upload a tournament, and then actually like go through it and watch how they did it, and then think about each spot, like, oh, what I would do here, and this is what they did. That kind of learning is like, you can't really like to find a way of doing that. It's pretty special, right? Like that, to me, I think you can't learn any better, because then there's going to be spots where you're like close, because then you'll see a similar spot and it's going to trigger it. And it might not be exact, but you might look at it and be like, you know what, that's interesting, because I 100% agree. Yeah. So I just think it's super. Oh, he said we can talk about it, but let's.
Do you want to put out your affiliate code, because it's your thing?
You know what? I have one. I think because I haven't technically. I uploaded some hands and was practicing, but I didn't put out mine. We can put yours if you have a link. Send it to me. It's fine. But whatever. It's called Check the Side, and it's a website, and it's up. I can put on. I'll just put it up, and it's all good. Let me just real quick. Here it is. So it's called Check the Side, but I just love how it looks. I love the interface. Yeah, you're on there. They do have mine. So I'm added in there officially now. So this is actually updated. I didn't even see that, but there you are, right in the middle. Reg, some other interesting streamers and people kind of involved or supporting it. And you can watch a video on it, guys. Well, you do take your time and watch that on the side, but it's basically, the long story short is you would be able to upload a hand. And if Charlie has a hand history or a tournament, you could actually feed through, and while each hand is going, you can make a decision on what you would do, and it shows you what he does, which is like, I just think it's genius in the way they have it done, in the visual way of looking. It's very, very.
My prediction is that almost everyone's going to be using it in the future, and the sooner that you can start using it, the more of the edge you'll have on other people.
Yes. Also, for example, of Phil Galfon, PLO, taking some high stakes cash spots and looking at PLO and seeing interesting hands and cash games and tournaments and also, yeah, it's genius. So anyway, that's great. I actually didn't even have that on my notes, but I just put that in, that I remember that you were your picture was on it, and I knew you were involved in some form. So that's cool, man. Hopefully, yeah, maybe there's some fun stuff we can do, hand reviews, and kind of do some content together.
Yeah, I'm so down. If you want to create any content, like if you want to collab at some point, I'm so down.
No, I mean, listen, I would love to go through some of because like, again, there's part of the reason too is like, you say you've seen some of my stuff. I'm sure you have a pretty good feel on my game. And I have a feeling that I haven't yet to unleash the power in my game, because I think like the general perspective of how my game's viewed is on the tighter side, which I'm aware of, but it's like, not just like, oh, like I'm going to jam more pre-flop or take more high. Cause like, again, pre-flop, the ranges are the ranges. Guys know what to do, right? It's like I have eights in the spot. Like what? It's like finding spots post flop, taking my image, taking blockers, taking situations, and doing stuff that I'm going to be able to get away with, probably close to murder, if you will.
Can I just go coach mode for a second?
Yeah, please.
I think that what you're getting at is pretty much just called unleashing the beast, which is what I usually use for people who have that kind of tendency. Yeah. And one thing that I might prescribe for you is find a low stake, play party poker. Is it rush? Fast forward. Yeah. And maybe just like 25 an hour, and have a day or like an hour a day where you just go mental, where you try and play good poker, but you're just trying to find every single bluff spot you can, like river 3-bet bluffs, river check raises, you know 3-betting 30%, something like that. So you're just getting in the habit of playing all of these ridiculous spots, so you just get it into your system, get it into autopilot, and then you'll have a good intuition for which one of those mental plays work. Because I think you're so good at hero calls, you're so good at knowing when people have it and when they don't. But yeah, I'd love to see your intuition firing up for when you go for the crazy punts as well.
Yes, that's the side where I'm getting more comfortable with it, and I also realizing too that I think that's a huge part of tournament poker too, is for people to realize that so much in tournament poker is top heavy, right? 1, 2, 3. So if you're getting so many like 10 through 14s or 8 through 15s, when you could probably just have a lot less of those and have a few more 1, 2, 3s, that's a big realization to come to, that's what you want to be going for. You'd rather have, focus on giving yourself a chance at that instead of just like, all right, you're going to be in there with 10 blinds, 12 blinds. And then it's like, oh, it's easy to say I got it in jacks to ace 10 when you have 12 blinds. Well, and you win that, you're even still not like you're going to win the tournament. You're going to maybe go up a little higher. So I think that's something I think a lot of people struggle with, and I definitely feel in that camp, and something I've tried to work on a lot. But finding
I mean, you're one of the best players in the world, and you still have to have this critical analytical mind into your game to change things, and everyone does. Absolutely everyone does.
Right. I think it's more dangerous, right, when people just they don't want to listen, or they think they're just doing everything right. That's for sure what you don't want. So okay, let's take a few more. I mean, this is actually I think you actually set the official question record. We're getting close to them, but we're just kind of tearing. So do you still love poker? Can I answer that for you? That's a yes.
Please do. Yeah, it's my baby. I love the mistress.
How many bad do you have? The biggest bad beat? Do you have one that stands out from like a final table or anything that really live or online that was just so like crushing, like a sick beat or a 1-outer, or just something that
call this overly positive mindset, but I jab beats and I always remember my suckouts. I remember bad beats that happened to Ben because they kind of bothered him at the time. But for me, no. I honestly, I've ran so good in my career as well that there aren't too many big moment bad beats.
Right. Give me a trick or a tip, like, because it is hard, like you said, even like Bankroll Challenge or these things where you're just so emotionally wanting to do well and perform and show people what's possible. If you're on Twitch and you just like, there's days when it's just you're losing every flip, you're getting, you're winning a flip, and then they hit the turn 2-outer on ace king to tens. The 10 comes on the turn, ace on the flop. You're bubbling tournaments. Everything's wrong. Just the day is literally like you feel like you're getting punked. Like you could actually see an email from a site being like, "Look, we did an experiment on you today. Thank you. Here's a bonus."
Yeah, like that makes more sense than what's happening. Yeah,
that would be like you're actually waiting for that. What do you do to sort of just like take that and just like when you feel yourself maybe like you don't tilt because you're a professional, but you feel that like anxiousness or that upsetness, or you just know like you're literally having to look at people and you see the chat like what the hell, or what's going on, or and then a play maybe you make and it's incorrect or not what you normally do, and you're getting blasted for it, plus you're running bad. Like how do you not just like click kill stream or just like start typing like F, guys.
Yeah, fuck you all, you suck at poker, you chat pros.
Yeah, yes.
We will have the urge to do that, to just tell the chat pros that they suck at poker.
Right.
But for me, the best way to do it is through quick meditations, and obviously you can't do it for long because you're on stream. Right. But I'll close my eyes, and a couple of things I'll do will be a grounding meditation, or just like slowing down my breathing, making sure I'm calm and relaxed. And then one thing I do is I will repeat to myself the mantra that I made up, which is I am lucky, I am skillful, and I will win. And I just breathe very slowly and repeat, I am lucky. I feel what it's like to be lucky. I say I'm skillful. I feel what it's like when I'm skillful. I'm making good plays. And then I say I will win, and I will feel what it's like to win. And believe in the law of attraction or not, but it seems to do great things for psychology. And then another thing, what was I about to say? I had a third thing. Wait, give me a second.
I like that. I use some of that. I'm lucky, I am skillful, I will win.
What was it? Huh? Guess it's gone. Guess it wasn't that important.
Well, that is powerful. And I think, my dad, again, like one of the things, it's not about what happens, how you react to what happens, but his thing that really stuck out to me where he said this was lose as if you like it and win as if you expect it. And that's like, I think that's
exactly right. That's the type of manifestation. The thing that I was going to say is that sometimes, because I realize that I'm almost like scared or anxious of losing, then what I'll do is meditate and feel and just like imagine that I've just like bricked the whole day, that everything goes to shit. You know, I've lost everything. And then also my radiator breaks and we lose the heating for the day. And then come to the rational conclusion and feel that everything's still absolutely fine in my life, whatever. And yeah, just going to like a visualization or a meditation, something like that, and just being completely okay with the worst scenario. And then everything from there is just a free roll. So that for me works anyway.
Very cool. Yeah, I think that's powerful, because it can be a difficult place if you get caught in a spot where you're not able to clear stuff off and you're just kind of taking it and then you got emails coming in or phones going and you got to handle this and you got like a bill or something, or say someone's asking you, your friend's asking you to transfer you money while you're mid grinding and you're looking at it, and you know it can just really derail your whole flow of yeah.
You need a lot of things to be going right to be in your A game.
For sure. Okay, well, we have officially I want to just last thing, because I do this actually, my dad sends me notes each stream, which is cool, and I had something about background of Kathy, and then I saw on your website with your coaching as well, and she's mentioned, can you talk about who Kathy is, because she's here with the experts, your holistic approach to success, and who is Kathy and what is she involved in your life?
So Kathy's one of the people I mentioned before. She's probably my main spiritual guru.
Okay.
And I understand the word spirituality kind of closes a lot of people's minds, but you can just replace that with emotional and psychological help. She's actually the person that I've recorded the masterclass with to help people along their journey of becoming a poker player. She has, let me rephrase this in a very, very delicate way. She can do things that the most skeptically minded people in the materialistic world would deem impossible. She can do things energetically that I previously thought impossible. I've tested it. I'm very skeptical. I'm a big believer in individualistic empirical research, and I've done my research and I absolutely trust her. I trust her abilities. So she's somebody that I'm joining up with in terms of making content, but also just getting her name out in the world. She does one-on-one sessions. So if anyone wants to do a one-on-one session with Kathy, she will absolutely change your life. She changed my life and the life of people around me, including some high-stakes poker players that have been extraordinarily impressed, including very skeptical people and open-minded people. Yeah, reach out if you want her email, and I will give it to you.
That's very cool. All right, we have covered a lot. I think you're either my longest podcast or the second, but to Mike the Mouth by it's right in there. This has gotten out of hand, actually, how long is it? I feel like we could keep talking forever. I know time is valuable, and I know you you have a lot of different projects and things you're doing, so I do really appreciate the time. I do want to say I did find this, and I already did message Andrew Finan with Choker. So this is called the Choker Challenge Cup. And this is May 7th to June 25th. And this is how it's there's Hikaru right
there. That's that girl that plays Cortez or something. Botez.
Yep. And Bill Perkins, we just locked him in as well for one. And there's a couple other, I know there's gonna be another poker in, but this is
I would love to play that if I could.
I think don't quote me on it, but I will put you in touch, and I think there's a good possibility, because Bill was one. We just got it sorted out, and then there's a couple other poker players we're looking at, and this is going to be pretty sweet. I think you would actually be a perfect fit for it, especially that you can stream it on Twitch as well. And some of these other, it's very rare. There's not many guys that are poker on Twitch that also have like a chess affinity. How is your game? Like, where would you rate your game? Like Bill's like a recreational. He likes it. He plays some. Are you like? Do you feel like can you battle? Like, I don't even know the ranking system, but where do you fall on the scale?
So my elo on Lee Chess is 19 something. My elo on chess.com is 16 something, which I think puts me, pretty high up. But I've really only been playing for like 8 months, and I haven't had any coaching or anything. So I would be able to battle, but I would get wrecked by like any kind of master, 10 out of 10 times. But I would be able to battle almost all poker players that aren't doing it professionally, that aren't playing chess professionally. Sorry.
Choker, man, it's the real deal. I will say I am so impressed with the actual app, like the how it works, like the interface. It's cool, it's fun, and it's, you know, there's betting on each street, and then you play the end game of chess. So you know, when I heard Choker, I'll be honest, the name's kind of cool because it's like, yeah, chess poker, and it kind of merges. I like the logo, I like the whole feel, but it kind of
sounds a bit kicky. Got to be honest.
That's what I'm saying. It's almost like too perfect in a way of like how it sounds, but it sounds kind of corny, right? Too. It's like, no way, like chess and poker, like you hybrid it. It's like a Liger, like, right? Like it doesn't really, what is it? It sounds like kind of cool, but kind of weird. And I don't know. And then I saw it, I played it, and I'm not good at chess, but I used to play some, and I thought it was like really interesting because chess to me, it's like one of those games that I'm never going to, it's like golf. Unless you handicap it, it's kind of like, it's not that fun. If you go to golf against Tiger Woods, you just can't win, or, you know, whatever. So it's like, how do you find a way to make it, take away some of the skill and merge it, but make it interactive? So I think they really nailed it. And it's not like a, you know, garage pop-up idea. This has been, they've got the tech, they put money into it. They've got major players in it, and they've, you know, it's coming to its fruition now. So I will connect you in a chat and have you chat and whatever. Hopefully you get to play it.
Thanks. That's really exciting. Thank you.
I think you're perfect for it, man. So, all right, let's end on that note. Is there any other things you want to chat about before we do this $55 ticket giveaway? We're going to give away someone on hopefully a further run. You know, it starts with 55. We all know it. That's how it all that's how it usually starts. Do you have any closing words, messages, things you want to touch on? You got your charity coming up soon, which you'll have a website launch. I guess you're going to put that up in the near months.
Yeah, please, if anybody does want to help with the charity in any regards, please do reach out. There will be multiple opportunities amongst different varieties and domains where people can help. We, I believe, have a very good shot of ending homelessness in the UK within the next 5 years. That's our goal. And we're with all the biggest names, and we've got a lot of impetus and a lot of brilliant people on our team. So if anybody does feel any way inclined to help out, then please do reach out.
And that's awesome, man. Please let me know when it's that time. Give me a shout out on that. I would love to do that. I'd also love to check out your the coaching thing. So maybe you could send me some info on that. I may see it's on your website, but I would be interesting to go through that. And then also, like I said, I think that's it's actually studying poker and reviewing. It's always a bit cumbersome. It just seems like, you know, it's hard, but I think on this check the side, for example, which is great that we're both involved at, we could maybe plug in a tournament, look at the end game, and sort of go through. You know, I think like in particular, I would love to look at the last 2 tables, 3 tables, right? Like the end game, kind of looking at some of the, you know, it's interesting too in tournaments where it goes from 9-handed or 8-handed. And then at the final 2-3 tables, there's a lot of 5, 6, 7-handed.
Yeah, you got to go mental in those spots, at least some of the time.
Yes. So that would be a lot of fun to look at. So, all right, let's, someone just said they logged in the second to check the side. That's awesome. We'll talk more about that, and then we're going to go ahead and do this retweet here. Is there anything else, man? You got any other closing statements? We're almost at 3 hours. We might as well hit it. We got 3 minutes to go. Make it in the 3-hour club, which I think only one.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I could talk for another hour, I'm sure. I am a bit sleepy just because I haven't meditated enough, I think, but I've been trying to like get short ones in the middle of the podcast to stay articulate. But I would say that if people are out there and they're trying to decide whether to be a professional poker player, please do follow your dreams, but please also be very rational and realistic. Poker can be a beautiful, beautiful spiritual pathway to financial enlightenment, and it can be something that can gift you a lifestyle that maybe you've been dreaming of since you were born, or at least since you could start dreaming consciously. And on the other side of that, poker can also steal people's lives. It can be an addiction. It can be essentially gambling if you're not doing it in a certain smart way with correct bankroll management and you're not learning it properly. And most people who want to be a professional poker player don't manage it. So please always have a backup. Please always look to see with a very honest and analytical mind, how good are you at a certain point? Were you expecting to be better? How good are other people by that point? And don't let poker ruin your life, but at the same time, it can be turned into a beautiful thing. It can teach you so many life lessons. Even when you lose, it can be an extraordinary teacher. And yeah, don't let other people tell you to only study with solvers.
Love it. Who was your role model when you were growing up? I want to do that and your favorite poker player, and then we'll we'll move
Get
from
to that,
there.
get to that juicy 3-hour mark.
Yeah.
Role model when growing up would be someone completely different to role model now. So role model growing up would have been a scientist of some description, probably someone like Feynman, the mathematician, or someone like Einstein, or somebody. I don't know. There are different mathematicians, that Euler, that I particularly liked, but now there would be people who are, I would say, people who have managed to find that beautiful inclination between or duality between rationality and spirituality, like kindness and logic and things like that. So there's a guy that, if anyone's curious in learning about Eastern philosophy from somebody that's extraordinarily scientifically minded, there's a person called Alan Wallace, who is a Buddhist Lama, which is great that they call themselves that. And he has a debate on YouTube called "The Nature of Reality" with I think a neuroscientist / physicist.
Okay.
And yeah, if you're interested in getting to Eastern philosophy, he's the person I go to.
Very cool. And what about poker players growing up? Is there anyone you just like love watching on TV, respected, like Poker After Dark, or whatever else? Was there some other stuff that you looked up to, or just were like, man, that's cool, that makes me want to play poker?
Yeah, I mean, Joe Stapleton was one. He was probably my number one. He was the person that when I met him, I was the most kind of like, oh my God, it's the Joe Stapleton,
Right.
Starstruck's the word I was looking for. And I loved Daniel Negreanu. I still really, really respect Daniel Negreanu and really, really think he's an awesome person. I don't know what he's doing with his life at the moment, but whenever we've spoken, it's been extremely pleasant, and I think he's force for good in the world. I really did like Doug when I was growing up, and I still think he's a great role model in some ways for how hard he works and the energy that he puts out with positivity when he's playing, and he's always laughing and smiling. He's good for the game. Who else is great? Some other people are great at the moment, man. Like the people that I'm spending all my time watching are like you and Lex, and that's kind of it. There are a few other streamers that I pay attention to, but yeah, I'm sure that everyone listening to this has already watched all of your content. But go rewatch it. It's great.
I appreciate it, man. Again, I'm very excited to be aligned on this check the side. I actually have showing this to Party Poker because they have the My Game, which I believe they made a big steps, and Rob they're trying to not let people, they're trying to protect the players, and like also it's a learning process to try to do some of this new stuff, taking some risks. I think My Game's great. I think it's a really interesting
what's
tool.
My Game?
It's a way to review hands. It also gives it's got similarities to check the side, but just different, where you're able to sort of replay hands. It gives you a ranking, a score. It's showing you what areas of your game. It's in. You should check it out. It's kind of,
yeah. I'll look into it. Skeptical, but I'll look into it.
No, yeah, I've seen it. I've gone through it. I think it's good. I think that check the side would be an amazing compliment, and I know Luigi and check the side, they're looking to because Stars has Boom Replayer kind of like tagged with them. I think that
good
would be
point. Party
really,
Poker needs a good replayer. That's a good point.
It would be a huge ad, and it's Rob is dealing with a lot, right? And he's got there's people within Party. There's a good system, but I think they would really benefit to find a way to sort of incorporate or be involved. So I think it's like the perfect fit. It's just kind of hard because there's so many of these type of businesses or replayers or things, right? So it's like you got to really grab the attention and say, look, this is how it works. This is what it is. Let's take this seriously. And I think it's one of the few things that could actually make a big change in a quick period of time where people are just going to love it. And I hope Party gets involved with it. So I'm going to do my best to get that in front of them and have them see it. John Duffy is still in the chat. He said he went out for a long walk, and you guys are still here. John, this is not a hobby. That's what we tell them. We like to keep it going. So, all right, let's roll this $55 ticket, and then we'll again thank you for your time and everyone who tuned in. Really appreciate it, and then we'll ride off into the sunset and collaborate in the future. So you tell me when to roll, and someone's going to win it.
All right, good luck, boys. 3, 2, 1.
Boom. There it is. Gav Passad. Sounds like a guy who's won before. I recognize his name. Boom. He has won once before, but hey, being lucky twice is allowed. That is going to close us out. Thank you so much, man. Really a treat. I feel like I know you much better now. We've had a firm chat, and we covered a lot of ground. So really appreciate your time. Thanks again, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, beautiful, man. Thanks. It's really nice to get through 3 hours of conversation and still feel like we could speak for another like 5 hours and still just have fun.
Yeah, no, you're already auto booked for a podcast too, so we'll have to just pencil it in down the line. But I'm sure, again, I actually think that I don't like it's so easy to start committing and doing stuff and it's just so whatever, but not like a weekly thing. But it would be really cool to do hand reviews with you. I think that would be a lot of fun because like it's just one of those things. Like I think we can both get it, and you kind of understand each other's way of thinking. I think you can have a big shift. Like I have no doubt that going over some stuff with you could be a spark and some better finishes. Maybe a few more firsts and thirds and fifths and whatever. We could maybe
I'm 100% down for that.
Cool, man. All right, well, awesome, bro. I appreciate it. Appreciate everyone tuning in, guys. This was podcast number 61. Charlie, Carrel, however you want to say it. It's energy. It's positivity. And we'll see you soon, man. Thanks again. Cheers. Namaste. Yeah. All right, guys, we got another podcast coming up a bunch this week. Thanks again. And we'll be live on Twitch in a bit. Gonna have some lunch and I will see you guys soon. So cheers. Bye.